Yo, yo, yo. We are back for one of my favorite couple weeks of the year. These guys, too, I'm sure. I am with the full crew tonight, too. We started late because we wanted to get it out to where everyone can rewatch it tomorrow. Everyone's going to be building their brackets tomorrow, putting their bets in. So even though it's late, we do want to get the winners out to you a day ahead. And tonight I'm with the college basketball crew from Run Pure. The whole year was Steve and Gav picking winners all year in the Discord, and then me and my man Stats, who will have a bunch of numbers, bunch of bets. So we're going to come at you from a lot of different angles tonight, and I feel pretty good about what we're going to put out there, leading you guys towards the funnest 4 sports days of the year for me, or right there with anything. So, Steve, you guys been at it all year. You guys crushed the last couple of years, too, with our UConn wagon. We don't get the guarantee UConn wagon, but I'm sure we got some other stuff coming in. What's going on?
Yeah, it's been a real fun season. Gav and I were just out in Vegas for a couple of days. We always go out there for conference tournaments. We get good reset before the tournament. So we are ready to go. We got some great games, some really strong seeds. But, yeah, it's more of a balanced it's more balanced up top than we've had the last couple of years. With our UConn futures. We have some that we've put in. I know JBC posted some in the Discord too. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Awesome 4 days. It's a grind, but it's obviously a ton of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Gavin, all year long, I checked in here and there, saw some good contrarian plays like always on the core page at Run Pure. What's going on, my man?
Yep, can't even over describe just the next couple of days that we got on our hands the next couple of weeks. So excited to jump in with you guys. First show with Stats. Glad to be here, and appreciate you having me on.
It's always the best being with Stats. One of my favorite to just talk sports with. I think we've probably done football along the way, but NASCAR. I'm happy to talk with Stats because I'm more of him. Like where we don't really watch college a ton during the year. I have watched a lot the last couple of weeks, but until March, I don't really follow it. I don't think Stats follows it close, but I do know Stats knows betting side and numbers better than anyone. So I'm happy to have him on here. Stats, what's going on?
Not much, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Dude, this is the same thing for me every year. Like I ease into college ball, watch a few games, then I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get all that excited. I'm not going to get all into it. Then the Sunday comes, the selections come out. Monday, I'm like I did yesterday. I'm just buried in the computer. I got my spreadsheets going. I've got Calcutta's that auctions that I've got to get involved in. So I'm building spreadsheets, figuring out the value on every one of these teams. And by tomorrow my head is just spinning with because I'll put in multiple brackets. I've been running a pool with family and friends forever. I'll put in multiple brackets. They'll change about 40 times before tip on Thursday, and I have no clue who I wound up picking in my brackets by the time these games tip. So, but yeah, you're right. This is the most fun. People talk about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is one game. and it could suck. It could be boring. There's no way the entire day sucks Thursday and Friday. We already had a great game tonight. Yeah, the 16th seed. These are teams that nobody really watches. No one's watching Alabama State or St. Francis, PA, and that was a phenomenal game. Can't really say the same about the game that's going on right now, but it's always. So this is the best weekend I think in all of sports.
It's just so good because you get action from the time you wake up till after midnight if you're on the East Coast. So it's just the best. There's so many pools too, like Stat said. We're all in brackets. I've seen Splash has $1 million $100 survivor, which might be my favorite overall pool of the year. Like the strategy that goes into it where you need to take some longer shots early, save the big teams. I freaking love it. And you got $1 million up top over there that it'll probably fill, I'm sure, but it's not even close to filling right now. Have you guys seen that thing? How many are you guys getting in it, I assume?
Yeah, I actually joined earlier today. There's just so many different ways to get action this week. It is wild. I was going through all the pools I'm in, brackets, DFS, bets, showdowns. It's actually kind of overwhelming at times to think about all the shit that's going on, but it's fun. I actually don't do that many brackets. I do one a year, and I'm going to do it on the show here. We got a blank one.
There we go.
Fill out on the show.
I treat it like DFS, man. I put in the max again in every just because you got to be really good to put in one bracket. I think you have to really know your shit. I kind of play with different strategies. I'm like one of these, and I've done really well. Usually my bracket pool is about 100 to 125 people. Over the last 20 years, I think I've won it like three times and cashed at least 10. So it's not bad. There's a lot of game theory. It's just like DFS. I think when you fill out your brackets, there's a lot of theory involved in it.
So much game theory with stuff. And this year, I'm interested to hear your guys' takes because I sent the tweet early in the week. It looks chalkier than I've ever seen a bracket in my life. So I can't wait to hear if you guys have different takes, because obviously I didn't follow it all year. But it just looks like these top teams are on a collision course in the Final Four for me. But let's hop into it. How we're going to do it. We're going to do DFS shows every day, too. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 a.m. I don't know if the full crew will be here all day, or every day, but we probably will or close to it. So tonight we're just going to go through the bracket. We'll talk about each game, and then we'll talk about some bets as they pop up too, I'm sure. But with so many games, we're not going to really dive into the players all that much tonight just because we'll have the shows and stuff. So let's hop into it. Let's get Auburn, Alabama State out of the way. Just talk about notes and stuff, Steve. More so Auburn, obviously. You don't need to talk. It was a good game earlier tonight, though, but you don't need to talk about the other side.
Yeah, South region, I think the weakest overall region by far in my eyes. Extremely good draw for Auburn here. We don't really need to talk about the Auburn-Alabama State game who won tonight from the SWAC. It's a great draw here with what I think is the weakest two, the weakest three because of injuries in Iowa State. The most susceptible four in A&M, and the 5 seed who had basically the luckiest power conference team in the sport in Michigan. So my only note on this game is that I love the draw that Auburn got compared to like Florida or Houston.
Totally agree. Gavin, anything crazy here, or what catches your eye?
No, I mean, they definitely stumbled down the stretch. At least started to show some cracks. Lost 3 of their last 4. Texas A&M after they clinched. Tennessee, Bama in OT. Like, okay, they're still up there with some of the highest rated KenPom teams that we've ever seen. In the history of the database. So, now the fact that they do have an easy draw, I think it's kind of a good way for Pearl to rally the troops. And it's gonna be tough to bet against this wagon.
I think I saw stats. The number came out like 32, 33. Not that matters a ton. We're talking bracket. But what do you think of Auburn overall?
I mean, they're being picked. If we're going to talk about them going all the way, we want to talk about like winning the whole thing and whatnot. I was looking at the CBS earlier. So again, I look at overall like what's the percentage of people in pools taking, like how many people are taking them. I think they were at like 20% or something like that, which is slightly over what a lot of the models have. The models are predicting about 15 or 16% probability that Auburn wins. And that's really typical when we talk about brackets and you're talking about the game theory. The big favorites, and Auburn was the one overall. They're not the favorite overall. Duke is getting is the favorite, but the 1 seed overall is typically going to be overtaken in pools because most people don't really watch any of the games. They put it in. They're going to take a 1 seed to go all the way, whatever they think is the best team. So oftentimes you have an advantage in a larger pool by fading some of the top teams, still taking a good team. So you could even still take a 1 seed or a 2 seed, but fading either like a Duke or an Auburn who may be a little overvalued compared to what the models think their probability of winning is.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder too. So like if Auburn, say Auburn, I think is 4-1 in general, Duke's 3-1. Like when you see, like you said, say they're 16% being picked 16% in pools and they're 4-1. Like, do you weigh that at all? Like for people that look at that kind of stuff?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Almost like poker where pot odds and stuff.
No, I mean it's similar to poker in that respect, but I always equate it more towards DFS where it's actually, I think it's 20%, and we'll get there later. As you CBS at ESPN used to have a nice chart of this, and they don't do it anymore. But CBS, like if you hit the little info button, it'll tell you like how often you see the little info on that game. So they're obviously 99% people are taking them in this game. But as you go through, it'll tell you the percentages of people taking them. It's really important when you're filling out your bracket. Like pay attention to that and look at the odds. I mean, this is if you want to get kind of deep into the weeds here. But when you get to the Final Four and the winner, it is something to look at. In this instance, like, I think, you have to know your local pool. If you live down, you live in Alabama, you're like, all right, there's gonna be a hell of a lot more people putting in Auburn pools, right? So you're gonna want, if look at some of the models out there and look at the betting market. If you don't have a model to look at, the betting market is perfect. You look at the betting market, if they're predicting 4-1 and there's only and there's like 20% in, that's about where the market is, right? Now there's juice, and I'm not going to get into all that, but there's VIG and all that crap. But so it's pretty fair. But if we were looking at, like, if they were 5-1 or something like that, you would definitely want to fade them there if 20% of the market is taken, because now you're over. There's less of a chance compared to the amount of people that are taking them in the pool. So you're going to get value by taking them elsewhere. So just think DFS when you're making your brackets.
I love it, because a lot of people talk about that kind of stuff when they're building their brackets and stuff. All right, let's move on to a competitive game. I know a lot of people have been talking about Louisville. I don't know much besides I watched Duke beat up on them without Cooper. But spreads 2.5, 145 total. Louisville 23 Ken Palm, Creighton 37. It looks like Ken Palm. Steve, what do we got here?
You got to feel pretty bad for Louisville. They get underseeded in the same quad as Auburn in the first weekend. Louisville just played the 4 drop heaviest teams in the ACC. Creighton obviously has the best drop coverage big in the country in Kalkbrenner. The big news here, Rain Smith expected back for Louisville. He's going to play this weekend. James Scott, the center, pretty dead to rights against Kalkbrenner. But Chucky Hepburn's going to be guarding Stephen Ashworth, so that's a big plus for Louisville. I think they're going to need a huge Kalk game for Creighton to win here. I lean Louisville. I haven't bet it. But I think for the bracket, I'm going to go Louisville here.
Gav, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there is going to be a fair amount of variance just baked into this game when you have 2 teams that launch it from 3 at the rates they do, top 20 nationally. A lot is going to come down to, who's going to be able to score off the bounce more and make, the NBA style shots. Ashworth has struggled for Creighton, with up the line pressure this year. And now he gets the ACC Defensive Player of the Year on the ball and Chucky Hepburn. So kind of somewhat echo what Steve is saying. To give you a sense of Louisville, right? I mean, they're rated ahead in Ken Palm of multiple 5 seeds and multiple 6 seeds and multiple 7. So they're, like Steve's saying, a little bit underseeded, and you're not paying much of a premium in the market, but Creighton will cut off, the catch and shoot opportunities that Louisville generates at, an extremely high rate. So tend to lean Louisville. Tough game to bet. Probably a good one to potentially bet live if you want to play the 3-point swings.
All right, stats for our bracket here. If they both agree, I'm just going to do it for the courtesy of the show, give them Louisville. But you have any different takes? I know when I saw 57% picking Louisville, they're a 2.5-point favorite. Feels pretty standard to me, but does anything stick out to you?
Yeah, that's right about where they would be, right? So, I mean, you'd want to look at the money line and but it's going to be right in the ballpark. I agree. I have Louisville actually just slightly a larger favorite than that, maybe by a point. So it's not a huge. I think I'm probably in the same ballpark with Boynton here. It's more of a lean than a really strong bet, but
yeah,
I do like Louisville. Creighton is one of the teams. I just watched Creighton the other night because I got to watch whenever St. John's is good. You got to watch St. John's when you're from.
What a comeback! Out of Johnny's.
That was a great. Yeah, it was
what
a great
second
comeback.
half.
Yeah, that was a really nice. Good. That game in a blink. I mean, that was like a game, and then in a blink, it was not a game anymore.
Yep.
That was impressive. But yeah, I mean, Louisville, they're getting the old Patino team, and I'm with you guys. I'll take Louisville to advance here.
Yeah, it seems like a tough spot for Louisville, so I'm glad you guys said that. I felt like they looked pretty good versus Duke in that game. Let's move to the next one. Man, Michigan. I bet them Sunday. I thought they sucked, though. Like, they got all these big whiteys just throwing up bricks. I thought they were freaking bad, but you got it open. So I wrote down the openers, too, on Pinnacle just because I wanted to see the movement throughout the week. It looked like Michigan opened at 3. It's down to 2.5. The total, 141, up to 142.5. Michigan 25 Ken Palm, UC San Diego only 35 Ken Palm. So you got a little bit of a low number. I know people like to bet 12s anyways versus 5s. I think Michigan sucks, so I kind of want to go that way. But Steve, what's going on here?
Yeah. Well, did you watch him on Saturday when
I bet them both days? Actually,
Yeah.
I bet Michigan both days, but man,
Yeah,
they
look,
don't look good to me.
I am not a Michigan guy, and I understand how lucky they've been. I was tweeting about it all weekend during the Big Ten tourney. And yeah, so their issue is they turn the ball over a lot. UCSD forces turnovers at a high rate. But man, so this is going to be your most popular 12-5 upset. This in Colorado State by far. I think that this gets overpicked here. I mean, we're laying under a possession with the team just won the Big Ten championship with Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden down low, 2 7-foot guys. UCSD is not a big team. I just don't know how they have a chance to slow down the double big combo. Both guys are great passers.
Because they both suck. They're big stiffs.
They do not suck, dude. They're awesome.
That big dude was killing me with throwing those weak hook shots up.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego hasn't played anything remotely close to what they're going to see with the dual 7-foot big look, who are both really good passers. So I bet Michigan minus 2.5. I just think San Diego's getting way too much love here in what I think is a tougher matchup than people think. I mean, Michigan turned the ball over 20 times against Maryland and still won the game. So I want to hear what Gav thinks on this one.
Yeah, what do we got?
Yeah, in the Big Ten tourney run, a lot of it was the shooting came around for them. In the month prior to the Big Ten tourney, they were 362nd in 3-point percentage, shooting 22% from beyond the arc. They did run relatively fortunate in the shot making department, especially on the defensive end as well. But the main reason why this is going to be so popular is that the path is so clear for a UCSD team, that is one of the best net turnover margin teams in the country against a team that kicks it away. This is one that, even the administrative assistant in your office is going to be picking this one. UCSD, few stroke it to the mid-major West Coast teams like I do. And UCSD has been like the team the nerds have been banging the drum for weeks. And now Seth Davis hears about them and Jay Williams hears about them and they start getting trendy and popular. I do have a lot of respect for the UCSD team and Eric Olin. I haven't bet the Michigan side yet because, that path is so clear. But yeah, Michigan's going to have to win on the boards. And, UCSD's path is not only that, but it's Aniwaniwa, Tate Jones, drawing fouls against Vlad Golden, and Danny Wolf kicking it away. They got some elite 3-point shooters that can get it done in a 1-game sample. So, that is how UCSD is going to cover if they do.
So leading into stats here too, so what I see just in my numbers and kicking it to stats, I see a 2.5-point spread, 80% picking Michigan, 20. So yeah, 20 might be a big percentage, but I have to. I know we're only 2 games in, but I got to give my first disagree. I'm on the dog here, stats with the even.
Yeah, I'm with those guys. I mean, those guys make a convincing argument. They know a hell of a lot more about the players. I'm looking at the numbers. I had the line made at right at the 2.5 also. So I like the line from the number standpoint. And maybe it's the fact that Michigan is Michigan and they're just garnering a lot of attention right now as far as brackets. But I mean, 79%. I was expecting, I hadn't even looked at it. When you guys were talking, I'm like, boy, this is, and I looked at the line 2.5. I'm like, this is going to be a 50-50 toss up here on the percentages picked. But if that's going to be accurate in your pool, you almost have to take especially, by the way, look at the rules in your pool. Like my pool, the seeding matters. So you get more points. You multiply the points by whatever the points, the seed by the points for the round. So there's an advantage of taking some upsets. In a pool like mine, I almost have to take UCSD here if they're going to be taking on only 20% in my pool. And I think in a New York centric pool, a lot of people are just going to take Michigan because they know the name.
Yeah, Stats, I will add, I think the sharper your pool is, the way more frequent that UCSD will be played. So maybe not as much in your mom and dad's league, you know, especially if you're on the East Coast and, you know, UC San Diego, you didn't even know that was a real institution. But you're in high dollar stuff, you know, it's definitely going to be played strictly because, you know, the line is so close. So keep that in mind as well.
So Calcutta's, we probably get them over, like the big Calcuttas. I'm in a couple of them. They'll probably be overvalued here. You think UCSD?
Yeah. Also, because the second game, if they get through, is pretty winnable too, I think.
Well, so one thing to note too is as we go through these games, it's more lopsided spread wise than I ever remember a first round being. Like almost all 4 or 5 point spreads or more. So that'll probably make this more popular too, just because people want some upsets. They don't want to just pick every freaking favorite. Stats, who are you going with officially though? We got to now.
Yeah, no, officially I'll take the UCSD. I'll take the maybe.
Yeah, you got to be the tiebreaker. Are you making us go Michigan?
No, take UCSD for this.
Okay, okay.
It's the square. I'll take the square side.
It is funny when the 12's the square side. I do kind of agree with it.
People go crazy with this 12-5 nonsense, but like at the end of the day, first of all, you see, I mean, for the last 20 years, these 12-5 games have been like less than a 4-point spread in almost all of them. And I mean, just historically, 12 seeds in any type of, whether you're in tennis, basketball, whatever, when you're seeding these big tournaments, they should win a half a game on average. So you've got 4 of these teams playing. You're going to at least get one of these 12s to win every year. And people get so, you know, they go fucking ballistic. If UCSD wins tomorrow, people are going to go crazy. Like, oh, there we go. Big upset. Yeah. 2.5 point spread, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely, I just think Michigan sucks too. Like I hated how they looked, but I do have an anti-big white stiff bias. So
I got knocked out of a big Calcutta with Michigan when they hit that when against Houston, when Houston missed the 2 free throws and they came.
Yeah.
Who was that? Was I forget
Jordan
who it was.
Poole. Jordan Poole.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was brutal.
All right, let's move on. Texas A&M -7.5 at open. It went down to 7 versus Yale. 141 total. 17 Ken Pom versus 43 or 73. 73 maybe Ken Pom. I can't read my own writing. But Steve, anything here?
Yeah, so it's actually a decent matchup for Yale. Yale in the 98th percentile jump shot rate forced against a really, really poor shooting A&M team. If you haven't been watching, A&M's the same as they have been the last couple of years. Throw it at the rim, get the offensive board, and score. It's kind of exactly what you want as a Yale backer. You know, they can protect the rim pretty well. They're top 25 defensive rebounding team, but they haven't seen ball pressure like this at all in the Ivy. I took the under in this game, under 140.5. I think Yale has a shot to win. I would prefer the Yale side if betting aside, but I took the under. But yeah, I mean, this is by far the best defense and the most ball pressure they'll face the entire year.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, just the 75. I know this is probably like tons of just donkey picks in this number, but this is closer margin than the last game somehow, 75-25, even though the spread is way more lopsided. Gav, what do you see here?
Yeah, you got 2 teams that are going to underscreen everything. They're going to wall up around the rim, and they're going to push everything to the outside. 2 mega high defensive 3-point rates. One team is 38.5% from 3. 9th best in the country. The other is 317th best in the country from 3. So that would be advantage Yale slightly in that. I mean, if you talk about the components that an underdog needs to, you know, force one of these upsets, it usually starts with you got to hold on to the ball and you got to at least win on the 3-point arc. And, you know, Yale is relatively sure-handed, you know, top 20 in the country, albeit like Steve mentioned, it is a different level of ball pressure. So, you know, there are some things that set up for Yale. I mean, I think this might be a way more under the radar pick. I'm kind of surprised it says that more people are picking Yale than are picking UCSD, not only given the line, but I thought this would be a way more under the radar spot that you could look for that, you know, has some of the signs that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Stats, what do you think?
The Ivy Leagues always get a little over bet. Like people love rooting for the Ivy League teams.
Especially since they won last year too in the tournament, maybe.
Yeah. Although maybe there's a little more anti-Ivy League sentiment these days, but in the it's historically in the pools. But everyone I know at least in the New York one, people like taking the Ivy League schools, but it's right on the number when you look at the money line. 75% is about what the money line is here for A&M to win the game. Gav stole a little bit of my thunder. I mean, A&M, I have that article out on Run Pure, and I know Boynton. By the way, I didn't realize that was you yesterday, Steve, breaking my chops on that. I'm like,
I was just giving you shit.
You know, yeah. And I was like, I didn't really, because you changed the name in there. I'm like, who is this guy? But there's a couple of things. Yeah, the 3-point shooting, which you alluded to, they are below 33%. So that's like kind of a barometer to look at. The teams that shoot less than 33% vastly underperform in the tournament. A&M qualifies on that level. And then when you look at top seeds, top 4 seeds, when you look at the scoring margin, they're only 6.4 points plus 6.4 in the scoring margin on the season. Teams that are under 10 do extremely poorly. So that's kind of one of the teams that you want to knock out from making a deep run here is A&M. You know, but we're already like, I could see that we're almost teetering on it. I would probably take A&M in this game, but you take Yale and already you're looking at a 13-12 matchup, and you're going to have one of these big double-digit seeds going to the Sweet 16. So
I might say this is the most likely
fourth game.
This might be the most likely region that you get a 12-13.
For sure, because look at the other 4-13s. I don't see any chance for the other 3.
Yeah, we'll get to them.
This is always the strategy that is tough in the bracket pools, though, just because you want to get a few upsets out there, but all of a sudden you're already in a dilemma here where if you take Yale, then we got to take one of them two to go another round, and then you're banking on 2 dogs. So what do we want to do overall here? We want to fire it in there with Yale.
I like Yale, and we're gonna have a bunch of chalk coming up.
Yeah,
so.
Good.
Okay, then let's fire it in there. Let's have some fun with this one on the show.
Well, what Gav said is great. Like when if you're looking for upsets, teams that typically in these tournaments, like it's the teams that you can shoot the 3 because you just get hot. Because when you're not as physically gifted as the other team, the ultimate neutralizer or whatever, equalizer, I should say, is that 3-point line.
Absolutely, 100%. Let's move on. So we got Ole Miss versus Carolina, who's pounding them tonight. Ole Miss 26, Ken Palm. North Carolina 33, Ken Palm. The same stats everyone's heard on all the bracket shows, 1 in 10 or whatever in quad 1.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Blah, blah, blah. Every single year, though, one of these teams makes an extended run. It might as well be Carolina this year. What do we got, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, they're just fisting San Diego State right now. Yeah, it's a pretty similar matchup. Gavin will know more about that because I haven't dug in yet. But, yeah, I mean, Carolina's got the upside because they're going to have better athletes than most everyone they play. Ole Miss has been a pretty frustrating team down the stretch. I don't have a take on this game yet. Gavin might, though.
What we got, Gav?
I mean, this thing, before UNC puts this just thrashing on the Aztecs, it was about a 1.8 projected spread in this game, on the look at Ken Palm line. So, UNC shooting much better from 3 as they move Withers into the lineup, and God, Withers couldn't miss early. UNC was shooting much better. There's much more spacing for, a guy like Cadeau, who sometimes struggles as a jump shooter to get into the paint. And Ole Miss is, going to be a no middle defense, top 25 near proximity frequency defensively. So going to force UNC to shoot over the top. So in that sense, UNC is a much worse matchup for Ole Miss than San Diego State was. They're two kind of very similar-ish teams. They're very strong backcourts who are extremely frail in the front court. Albeit, Van Allen Lubin has been an absolute dog for North Carolina the last couple games. So there is a chance that, this kind of very late find of the new UNC lineup kind of catapults them into being a much better team than they have been throughout the year. But, the ceiling is still somewhat capped given those front court inadequacies. But trust me, like this game is going to be closely aligned. These teams aren't far away from each other on Ken Palm. UNC is going to be plenty live in this spot. And look, we're already talking about all these potential upsets. That kind of speaks to how easy we think the draw is for Auburn and some of these higher rated seeds being very vulnerable.
This is the only quadrant where I really have more than one upset. So I don't mind it at all.
And it is tough. Just again, I haven't followed it near as close as these guys have, but just looking at these games, you got dilemmas going on where Auburn, I see exactly what you guys are saying. Stats, anything stick out to you with this matchup after this blowout tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't run the numbers yet, obviously, because we didn't quite know who was going to win. I guess maybe we knew a little sooner than we thought, but
we knew before the show, at least.
Yeah, we definitely knew before the show. But North Carolina's playing better. I mean, you guys were watching them. They've improved here as of late. I did watch that. I mean, they could have easily beat. I mean, they were down a bunch in the Duke game, but could have won that game. And sort of everyone kind of thought they needed to win that game.
Yeah.
You guys tell me, like this what do you guys? Where do you guys think the line is going to be on this one? I don't think they posted it yet.
It's got to be close to a pick 'em.
This team is better than playing better now than what their overall record had shown. No.
So what Gav was pointing out is they kind of made a change in their rotations and their minutes about a month ago. So since February 10th, they've only lost to Duke. Actually, since January 28th, they've only lost to Duke and Clemson. So, yeah, I mean, I think Carolina wins this game.
Oh, it's minus 1.5 right now.
Yeah,
Carolina's favored.
Carolina favored?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we
there you
advanced
go.
that.
I mean,
There you go. So 1.8. We're on it.
Yep.
And by the way, of course we remember who Kevin Pittsnogle is. Who doesn't remember who Pittsnogle is? I
So
don't know who this dude is, though. Who's this?
yes, you do. The Northern Iowa guy who hit the crazy 3 against Kansas.
Hey, I do remember him.
He
now.
actually just got
I wouldn't have
hired
known it if you didn't
today
say that.
at Colorado State because he's taken the Minnesota job.
Who is the coach?
Farouk Manesh is going to get hired at Colorado State because Medved's taken the Minnesota.
Where's he coach at now, though?
I have no idea.
I'll tell you what, though, it's bad mojo on this bracket having to see San Diego State go in this column right here, right now.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
know it's got both of them, but that's bad mojo on our bracket.
Well,
Like, that's ugly.
not to look ahead, but we might not be taking that SDSU spot any further.
Man, like, oh, it's hurting my feeling. You can't put a team that's getting pasted like that in there. But let's move on. Iowa State, Lipscomb, open 13.5, up to 14.5. Number 10, Ken Palm versus number 82, Ken Palm. Steve, I know Iowa State's been banged up. What's that status? And can Lipscomb play with them?
Yeah, this is going to be a quick one. We're going to move Iowa State forward here. So Sean Gilbert is not going to play in the tournament, one of their lead guards. In a weird, nebulous situation. It was an injury. It was an off-the-court thing. They just kind of said that he's not playing. So we don't really know what's going on with that. But what that does do is force Curtis Jones into more playing time. Cujo is just an absolute dynamic scorer. They probably lose a little bit defensively. Gav can talk more about that. But, man, the offensive upside when you play more Curtis Jones is just awesome. Taman Lipsey's going to be back. He's their point guard. Because they've battled through these injuries, we're getting a bit of a seed discount because this team was going to be a 2 seed before all this shit happened. Lipscomb's got a hub big that they play through, but man, Iowa State top to 5 defensive team in the country. The off the court stuff kind of scares me to lay the number in this game, but I don't see how they lose it.
Gav, anything different?
Yeah, not much. I mean, to beat this Iowa State high pressure overload defense, you need to do a ton of 3-point shooting of mainly the catch and shoot variety, which Lipscomb does. You need to have a strong assist rate, which Lipscomb does, right around top 100. But yeah, it's think about it this way: Keyshawn Gilbert's ruled out. It's 12 on Ken Palm, and it's already pushed out to 15. I think the market tends to somewhat agree. Curtis Jones at one point of the season was coming off the bench and was still top 10 in Ken Palm Player of the Year rating earlier in the season. The defense is the offensive on off is pretty negligible with Gilbert, but the defense is about 8 points per 100 worse. So that's where it'll be felt. Probably not. I mean, Lipscomb's going to have to absolutely burn it down from 3. They don't have the rim protection that they had when Dylan Faulkner was healthy, who's now out for the year. Really rough, I think, seed or draw for Lipscomb. If they were playing a more passive defense that kind of let them, get into their stuff, then yeah, I think you probably have a better chance of them surviving or at least competing. But don't know if this is where we look for an upset.
No.
Stats. See anything that they're not seeing?
No, I mean, I just think the 14.5 might be a little much. I don't mind, or not that I don't mind. I think Iowa State wins the game. I just think the 14.5 is probably a little much. I would probably take that 14.5 in the betting markets, but to have I have Iowa State advancing. And then when you look at a lot of the metrics I look at, Iowa State qualifies for all of them. So I'm going to at least have one of my brackets with a pretty strong Iowa State run here going to the Final Four.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say here with taking the points, Iowa State is kind of like Houston in that they hammer the piss out of shitty teams, which is probably why this is racing out a bit. Because there are games where they play inferior teams and the other team will go on like an 8-minute stretch without scoring, stuff like that. So
those are good tournament teams too, because you're going to have bad shooting games along the way. If you can lock teams up, you got an extra advantage for sure with that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one though. Marquette -4 versus New Mexico. High total 153.5. 28 Ken Palm versus 41. And New Mexico's another squad I watched the other night. My God, they sucked.
We were at that game.
Blue balls. But Steve, tell me why I don't just take Marquette here.
I don't want to talk about that game on Friday night. We were in like the second row for that fucking Boise game. This game is going to be awesome, though. This is the best game that we've talked about so far. 2 massive usage All-American guards squaring off, and Don Dent for New Mexico, Cam Jones from Marquette. Marquette was pretty bad down the stretch because they have not hit any shots. I'm not really sure that's going to get corrected in the tournament, but for this game, I think they probably get it done. I don't really have a strong lean either way on this game because these are 2 teams. Like, we haven't gotten Marquette right that much down the stretch. They just have not hit threes, which limits their upside moving forward. Like, they burned it down in the non-con, and then they didn't really figure it out in conference play, which is why they're a 7 seed. I mean, this team was ranked in the top 15 for most of the year, but they haven't hit a shot in 2 months. So I don't know.
Yeah, what do you think?
They've just been horribly mediocre. Like there's not a whole lot else to say. The point guard matchup is incredible. If you like stud point guards, this is just the Juergen special game of the first round. But thing to know about New Mexico: #1 overall in near proximity rate offensively. They're going to assault the rim, and Marquette is definitely not known for their stellar rim protection by any means. They're going to blitz ball screens a lot more and a lot more ferociously than New Mexico will. So I tend to think that there's a little bit better chance, at slowing Dent, also having Chase Ross, also having Stevie Mitchell. Yeah. That's a pretty elite 3-man guard defensive trio. So that is kind of how Marquette would do it. Is obviously you slow down Dent, and then if you slow down Donovan Dent, I agree with you. That team sucks.
I mean, I think they're horrible. Stats, talk to me.
Yeah, the models are right around 3 to 4, so kind of the betting market looks to be priced right where a lot of the models are at, and when you look at the 64%, 36% split here, that's pretty close to where the money line is as well. So I think you take Marquette here and move on. And to me, I think it's an easy pick to just move on with Marquette. I don't think you're getting enough of an edge here with New Mexico.
Yeah, it's just one of those games that, man, I also saw, I sent out the tweet too, where you see all the shot charts where they like teams shoot their shots from. And New Mexico had an ugly, I wasn't surprised because they looked horrible to me, but their shot chart looked freaking terrible where all the good teams shoot threes and layups. Theirs was like all these random mid-range things. And like, I just hated their chart. So I'm out on this. So are we picking Marquette or are you guys?
Marquette.
Okay. And then we got the 215 Michigan State -18 down to 17.5. The total actually jumped 3 points though, 150.5 to 153.5. #8 Ken Palm versus 149. Cut and dry. Izzo first round. Steve, anything stick out besides that?
Yeah, Sparty win. The only note I'll say, Bryant is full of a bunch of like Power 5 players. So that it's a bunch of kind of misfit toys from teams who have transferred down to a worse school to get more usage. They're, I think, definitely the most talented 15 team, but man, really tough matchup. They rely on transition scoring, which is not going to happen against Sparty. rim scoring, which is not going to happen against Sparty, rebound, which is not going to happen against Sparty. So, like, those are the three strengths of Michigan State. They should shut them down pretty good, and I assume score at will. So, I don't think there's any danger here for Michigan State.
Gav.
And we don't like this Michigan State team, so we'll get there.
Gav, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Bryant really got here by just being a massive, massive team playing against a bunch of, God love them, future accountants and lawyers. But, like Steve said, the Michigan State is basically a better version of Bryant. So, yeah, this is about as uphill battle as it gets. I think Michigan is a really high floor team. I question the ceiling against higher end competition, but, I think it's going to be generally a tough team to upset.
Stats, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the 2 seeds, if you're in a pool like mine where you get weighted for the seed, you have to consider if you don't like a 2 seed to go very far, at max win 2 games, just have them losing in the first game. I've won a lot of pools just getting that 15 points in the first round. Lehigh beating Duke, and then there's been several, but I had that Georgetown when they lost to the team down here in Florida. I had that one. Not like I thought they were going to win.
There's no CJ McCollum on this team.
We didn't. Nobody knew, and I'm a Lehigh guy. Right. I went to Lehigh. No one knew what they had.
You went to Lehigh? Seriously?
I did. Yeah.
But
nobody knew what they had.
Right.
At that point. By the way, that's a really good. I try to look every year. I'm like, look for these low seed teams who have some sort of a top prospect, top draft pick, lottery pick, I should say, on there, because in the NCAA tournament, I mean, look at when Butler went deep, right? We didn't know Haywood was that as good as he was, right? So if you could get that one guy, he can carry you at a low seed deep in these tournaments. But yeah, if you don't like Michigan to go far, go ahead and Michigan State, that is, go ahead and go against them. But obviously, and the point spread, I think, is right where it should be, right around 17 and a half.
All right, let's just finish each section just to make it easy. So won't have the spreads obviously for the next game, but we got Auburn, Louisville. Steve, what do you got here?
Auburn.
Easy Auburn. Gav?
Yeah, no argument from me.
I'm with you. Yeah.
No notes from anybody, just Auburn. We don't have to go crazy with these next round games, but if anything sticks out, just bring it up.
Okay.
Then we got our matchup here though. 12 versus 13, Steve. We got the good thing is we got Auburn where we get another easy one like you guys.
Yeah, how poetic is Auburn Yale in the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I think we advanced.
Where have we seen that before?
Because they lost to Yale last year in the first round.
Really? Yale beat them in the first round?
Yeah. I mean, it was a different team, but yeah.
That makes me want to pick Yale here. Who are we going, Steve?
Let's go Yale and then have Auburn beat the absolute piss out of them the next round. So Yale wins 2, gets to wait a week to go play Auburn in Atlanta.
With revenge.
With revenge, yeah.
Is that what Gavin stats? We good with that? Auburn over Yale?
That's good. It's good by me.
Yeah, fire.
All right, man. I'm still staring at this friggin' San Diego State thing. They need to.
Let's get rid of them.
Well, we could get rid of them right now.
Yeah.
Let's get them out of there as quick as we can. So Iowa State, I'm assuming Michigan State, but does anyone think that Marquette can beat them?
Well, see, in mine, I'm going to have them out. I'm going to have Michigan State out. There was one thing: the teams that are ranked preseason, unranked preseason. It's in my article that Steve doesn't like. But this is a Nate Silver take from 2011. I've been following it ever since. Teams that go into the season unranked and then finish the season in the top 10 perform unbelievably poorly in the NCAA tournament. Michigan State's one of those teams.
So they were unranked starting.
They were unranked coming in.
They were unranked because Jason Richardson's kid, we didn't know was going to be just absolutely incredible, and now he's playing 35 minutes a game. So, there was
Jason
at least
Richardson's kid, their best player.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's at least a meaningful change in.
Well, there's always there's always that. There's always the reason that these teams, they overperform, but for whatever reason.
I don't mind choosing an upset here because I have Iowa State beating Sparty in that game anyways.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, that's why I like the upset here because I'm going to pick Iowa State. I'm going with an upset.
Yeah, I do like Iowa State. The rematch of the Maui, 2-point loss at the Horn, tip in by Broome. Albeit that was fully healthy Iowa State, but I think just still a little bit higher ceiling than in Michigan State, especially when you become ball dominant with the Jace Richardson. Plays much better in Iowa State's hands.
All right, we all got Auburn, or is anyone going crazy with that? I know Stats said he liked Iowa State, but
I'm going to have some Auburn, some Iowa State. I'm good with whichever way you guys want to go on this one.
I have Auburn in the Final Four.
Yeah,
I will be picking Auburn in the Final Four.
I'm good with that. That's fine.
Go Auburn.
It's just by far the easiest path overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. You don't need to get to. That's one thing I think people mess up with brackets too. I think they'd have too many just crazy things. You're allowed to pick some chalk in there. Like you need chalk. It's like DFS. You can't just pick all crazy plays.
I was going to say it's the same exact. Everything really lines up with DFS because it's like they want to take the 0.5% owned player on the NBA slate. It's like you don't have to go that crazy. Like you could take the guy who's like 9-10% owned.
Yep,
100%. All right, Florida, Norfolk State, huge spread. Not a ton to talk about, but let's talk about Florida real quick, Steve, just because they've been an absolute wagon lately. Talk to me about Florida.
Yeah, so just a big picture with this quad. This quad is loaded. So we've got the defending national champs of the 8th seed. We got Florida, who just won the SEC tournament. Gav will expand on them. We've got, I think, arguably the best 5 seed in Memphis. We've got the Terps as the 4 seed, who have a huge ceiling. The 3 seed is one of our favorite teams in the country. And the 2 seed is St. John's, who just won the Big East tournament, who we basically have as a top 10 team. I think any of the 2 to 4 seeds I would take if they were in that South bracket. I would take to the Elite 8. So not a great draw for Florida, but man, they are so deep. They're so good in the backcourt and the front court. It's basically the main thing that we talked about out in Vegas last week. It's the deepest front court in the entire country. I think it's the deepest backcourt in the country. Versatility, physicality, shooting at all positions, depth. For this game, we don't even have to talk about the first game. Norfolk can't hit threes. They're 360th in three-point rate, 306th in three-point percentage, and they're going to try to score at the rim against Florida's 4-deep rotation. I think this is an absolute murder.
Hospital.
That's our MMA talk by Hospital. I like that. That's it. Anything with Florida here besides?
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to pick against them. But even in the betting markets, 28.5 now is. I mean, that's one of the largest lines you'll see even in a 116 game these days. And there are some models that have this higher than that. So
I think it's totally doable.
What was that?
I think over 28 spread is totally doable by Florida. This is a name your score game for Florida.
Love it. Let's move on to. I'm sure Florida wasn't happy to be talking about UConn. You don't want to see UConn in the second round. I know they're not what they were the last couple of years. They're still the back-to-back champs. Hurley's going to come in and be a psychopath like he always is. You don't want to play them in the second round. But so we got UConn open 4.5. It's up to 5.5. Total open 146. It's up to 148.5. 36 Ken Palm, 35 Ken Palm versus 38 Ken Palm. Pretty close in Ken Palm, but the spread says otherwise. And the tournament grit, in my mind, says otherwise. But, Steve, talk to me.
Yeah, I grabbed the over pretty early here. I think this is going to be back and forth scoring. The reason this UConn team is not what it was the last 2 years is they don't have basically any plus defender on the team. And those last 2 seasons, it was just impossible to score on them. So, a bad UConn defense against a team that wants to live at the rim. OU's defense has been a sieve of late. They have small guards. The over is my favorite bet in this game. OU is great in non-conference. I'm pretty sure they went undefeated. I actually, if you had to bet a side, I would lean OU getting the points. They've done well as a dog for us down the stretch. I think they can win the game. Just getting out of that conference, I think is going to help them a lot too. Before the back-to-back championships, Hurley had early exits in the tournament too. So I'm not really scared of them because of that. So, but yeah, over is my favorite play in this game overall.
One trend that I followed the last several years, that's why I like writing those early, like right when the lines come out on Pinnacle. I love writing them down. pen and paper. And when these numbers go up and these somewhat close, like 8, 9, 7, 10s, I always just play the line move in my bracket. I'm not saying bets. And it just feels like it always wins. But Gav, what do you see in this game?
Yeah, I mean, this game is won on Ken Palm, by the way. So that goes to show you how optimistic the market is on UConn. Yeah, they're off 12 straight covers and 2 national championships in the last 2 years, but like we said, it's not the same team.
We already have that money in our pocket, though.
Yeah,
OU's won the last 2 years, by the way. When you bet a game and you know you can't lose, it's just fun.
Every morning I would text Tony. I said, just lay it again. Doesn't matter.
And never did we ever doubt any of those games. Not to win, to cover. It was never in doubt to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like UConn's going to get picked. Both these teams foul a bunch, man. Bottom quarter, their conference. So, they're going to be staying at the line a fair bit. Like UConn's been hunted like crazy in isolation, which is, one of Oklahoma's main routes to offense with, probably a future lottery guy and Jeremiah Fears. So, yeah, I would agree. This is lean Oklahoma, lean over. I think over got pushed up, so I generally agree with that line move.
You guys are picking Oklahoma in the bracket as a 5.5-point dog.
It's one on Ken Palm.
I was saying more 5.5 lean their side on the betting. But if this is going to be closely contested, then you're probably going to get value on a minus 5.5 spread, especially the more, I guess, casual the brackets are.
I can see that too, where it's like I bet Oklahoma plus the 5.5 and I pick UConn in my brackets type thing. But
yeah,
stats, what do you see in this game numbers wise?
Yeah, no, I mean numbers wise, we're right. We're pretty close here. If the CBS is accurate, there 69%. So what are we at? Like the money line is right around 68%. So I mean it's right there. I think the line is right. I think 5.5 is right. I don't like this game to bet. I'm going to lean UConn. There's something in the I did years ago. I did some study on Ken Palm when you look at the offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. Now, both of these teams are fairly close offensively, but if you're kind of tossed up between a couple of teams, defense doesn't win championships. The teams that are better offensively on Ken Palm actually outperform, as long as the teams are close in the overall in the rankings. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I tier each group like 1 through 15 is tier 1 or whatever on offensive and defensive rankings. Anyway, if you do that, if you do my analysis there, UConn kind of gets the slight nod here, so I'm going to lean UConn.
Yeah, I like UConn in the bracket. I was talking more about the plus money. If you had to,
I like that move anyways, because like you guys said, Ken Palm's 1, spreads 5.5. Public's for sure going to be on UConn with the back-to-back titles.
And
pick
if you
UConn in the bracket, bet Oklahoma. That makes sense.
Yeah. And if you're betting these dogs, you can wait too, because everyone's just going to steam chase these favorites tomorrow.
All right, let's move on. Memphis, Colorado State. I think this is the only higher seed. Well, Carolina now, but the higher seed that's favored the whole first round. Colorado State opened at 2.5. It's down to 1.5. The total jumped from 145 to 147.5. You got looks like 51 Ken Palm versus 42 Ken Palm, if I'm reading it right. My handwriting's so freaking small. But Steve, what do we got here?
Yeah, your classic 12 seed favorite.
You think this is the user thing too, right here? Like, this is the auto pick and bracket then, if this is correct.
Yeah, I'm not trusting these percentages too much. Because
you don't think it just updates when people put their brackets in?
Colorado State's favored in this game.
Why don't you think it's accurate though? Because it's when they put their brackets in.
I think a lot of people auto pick on like CBS and ESPN. Anyways, I took the Memphis plus 3.5 at open. I think they're going to win this game outright. We rode Colorado State all the way through the Mountain West tourney, bet them every game, but you have to know when to hop off. Nick Clifford's been fantastic, but man, Memphis counters with the much better point guard in this game. They have PJ Haggerty, who is elite, and Dane Danger has been incredible inside for Memphis. Looked awesome in the conference tournament. Love them plus the points here. I think they went outright. I don't really trust that pick percentage. I think a lot of people are going to pick Colorado State here, and I just think that Memphis wins the game, so I'm going to go with them.
Gav, do you double down?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Colorado State, it's a pretty scary fate. They have been the piss missile in the country right now. Number one in Haslam momentum, ninth offensively, fourth defensively. They're top 10 overall in the nation since Valentine's Day. In that stretch, they've shot 47% from three and have only allowed 27.3% from three. So that's really what's fueled it. They're going to pack it in and force Memphis to shoot over the top. So not having Tyrese Hunter is not ideal, but Memphis still, a very strong three-point shooting team. Probably means that Colby Rogers, PJ Carter have much larger tasks. And Memphis is going to have to play well in the half court because Colorado State limits transition extremely well. But, they're still top 50 in half court point per possession. Tend to agree Memphis just on the spot with how freaking hot Colorado State has been. But, man, it's terrifying. I mean, this team has like multiple games shooting 65% plus from the arc.
They were definitely putting it on Boise. I mean, they look good, but they
just dragged their 3-point log all over the Utah State zone. It was something.
If they were playing a zone team here, I would not be picking against them the way they're shooting.
Stats, what we got?
I mean, I know Boynton's like a conspiracy theorist apparently, but
I
gotta agree. I got to think the numbers are right. We'll see how it changes maybe in the next day. But just based on these numbers, I got no choice but to play Colorado State. Plus Piss Missile was my nickname in college, so I got to ride it, man.
I can't go against, like, when I see a 12 favorite over because you still have so many people in these pools. Granted, high stakes is different. I agree with that. But a normal pool that, like, your moms and they don't have any clue about this stuff. You're good. There's no way that Colorado State isn't picked. It might not be to this extent, 71-29.
Also for this, Tony, like, we're not going to have them winning more than one game. So
these are the games that matter, though, when it's chalky later, because all these little ones add up. But you guys both trump us. We're just the numbers people.
No. I'm fine with taking the 12 here because we're not going to have them over the Terps. So.
And the argument makes sense based on the numbers.
Yeah.
It's just hard and honestly, I think the Mountain West is terrible, but everything Gav said about the Piss Missile, the nickname for stats, it all lines up where we gotta take them. But
yeah. No, like the one that I'm doing is just who I think's gonna win each game. That's it.
Yeah. And there's nothing, I mean, it still the line moved down 1-2. There's nothing wrong with taking Memphis. I don't think, but this is that team from last year that was exciting, this Grand Canyon team, right? I mean, I'm guessing they lost a bunch of people.
Yeah, and now they're playing the
Tyron Grant Foster wasn't healthy for a decent part of the season. He finally started looking better, and they go on, a run and win the conference tourney.
So just numbers wise, you got Maryland -11 down to 10.5, 150 total, 11 Ken Palm versus 93. What do we got, Steve?
Yeah, Grand Canyon needs to score at the rim. Going to be real tough against Julian Reese and Derek Queen, another Big Ten team with twin bigs. These two are much more athletic, especially Derek Queen. If you watch that game on Saturday, Tony, he was just going nuts with the sleeves on. The Terps also press a ton, and Grand Canyon turns the ball over like crazy. Getting Grant Foster back helps, obviously, and this team is talented. They have a TCU transfer in Jacoby Coles, but ultimately, I just don't think it's going to be enough. Terps are legit Final Four contenders, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add there. I mean, it's 14 on Ken Palm, so now 10 in the market. Kind of goes to show you, what a healthy tie on Grant Foster really means to this team, because he's a guy, that can either shoot you in or out of any single game. So, a big game is going to be needed from him. They get to the line a ton. And if they can get Maryland in foul trouble, that's kind of another way they do it. It's going to be a really up and down game. So could also see this potentially going over. Might not be a bad over spot.
Love it. Stats, what do you think?
So Maryland is one of those teams. Now, this did not work out well last year, but historically it's worked out really well. There used to be a website called Bracket Science, and it was great. And it's now defunct, but this guy put this stuff together, basically teams that exceed their seed expectations and then underperform based on the seed, and teams that have a coach who's been to the tournament, I think it's 5 or 6 times without making an Elite Eight appearance, tend to underperform their seed, and we've got that in this case here with Maryland. So I do like them in this game. I think the line is tricky. I don't know if I want to bet this. I'll take them to advance, but I'd be leery about them going too deep in the tournament. But last year that certainly bucked the trend. We had some teams. I think two of the teams that made it to the Final Four might have had what he used to call snake bitten coaches.
I know I got just like basic mind too, because I've only watched 2 weeks of hoops, but man, the Big Ten looks shitty to me. I did not like anything about those games I watched. So Michigan, Maryland, I just didn't love it. But that matchup is what it is. I agree with you guys. Missouri, Drake, we got Missouri open 6 up to 6.5, 133.5 down to 132.5, and then 15 Ken Palm versus 57 Ken Palm. Steve, what do we got?
Yeah, I'll let Gav talk more about Drake. So they have an interesting story this year that he can touch on if you haven't read any national media in the last 2 weeks, because they just found out about this team. Mizzou's going to pressure the shit out of the ball, and Drake turns it over a lot. Vandy turned them over 20 times in the non-con game. Drake can win this game if they can crush Mizzou on the offensive glass, which could happen. But Mizzou is by far the most athletic team that they've faced all season. These Drake guys are all D2 athletes.
Gav, what do we got with Drake?
Yeah, this is another one of those teams that the college basketball nerds have been riding the entire year. I mean, it's a very unique team, right? Like Steve said, it's full of D2 players, a D2 coach who is definitely the best coach in the country nobody's heard of. He might be like top 15, top 20 good. The guy's won at every single stop he's been at every year. But this team is a generationally slow tempo, which is going to be
Slower
pretty frustrating.
Virginia, by the way, Tony.
What is it?
They're slower than Virginia.
How can
Really?
anybody be slower than Virginia?
No. Generationally slow is not hyperbole.
Are they
I'm
all
not
white,
even
dude?
kidding.
They're all white
And,
D2 players, yeah.
Oh, this is, you're going to hate this team, Tony. This is full of white. This is full of whitey stiffs. That are going to middle ball screen and take every single second of the shot clock. They're actually really good offensive rebounding, which, is an area with Missouri's kind of moving matchup zone stuff, has been one of their Achilles heels this year. Missouri's, a heavy transition rate team and is not going to be able to run at all against Drake. So this is probably the biggest clash of styles that we're going to see in the first round. Drake's another one to do these kind of just half court mid-major execution darlings, versus a Missouri team that's pretty, high variance game to game, but is also an elite offense. So this is going to be a little bit spotty here for Mizzou.
I mean, one thing that sticks out to me, again, I'm simple-minded, but I see 62%, 38%. I see a 6.5 point spread. It's just easy Mizzou to me. So I like what you guys are saying. Stats, numbers-wise, what do you see with this whole thing?
Yeah, I think this one's it's an easy Mizzou for me as well as far as the brackets go. I don't know. Now that I'm listening to the style that Drake plays, like they may be able to just keep this game close. The 6, I kind of like the plus 6.5, but I agree with you. Like 62%, I think if that's going to be the probabilities or the amount of entries that are going to be in your pool, you got over 70% in the betting market for Mizzou to win this game. So it's kind of tough to pass up on them. So yeah, and then Mizzou is one of the best teams in the country as far as offensive efficiency on KenPom. I think they're 5th.
They're 5th,
and, yeah. So that's like I was saying before, I love looking at the offensive efficiency numbers and kind of moving those teams along. So I might bet Drake. I'm going to leave that one up in the air. I'm going to look at it a little bit closer, but definitely Mizzou in the bracket.
Yeah, both these teams are top 10 nationally in steal rate too. They just do different things after a steal, Gav. Mizzou's going to go right to the rim. Drake's going to walk it up the court and toss it around for 28 seconds. Anything that's a toss-up, I'm going to say we go with the SEC team this year.
That's got to be a decent strategy when you're torn. It's got to be, because that was murderer's row all year.
Yeah.
All right, next game, Texas Tech, NC Wilmington. We got 15.5, 142.5 up to 143. 7 Ken Palm versus 104 Ken Palm. I know everyone likes Texas Tech. Actually, it was the only game all year I went to in person Texas Tech at Cincinnati. They look good to me.
Love this team.
Steve, what do we got?
Yeah, well, we did the Big 12 preview show. This was the team that I was higher on than Marquette in the country. One of the things I got right this year, they're at 7th at KenPom right now, battling through injuries the last couple of weeks. Everyone's going to be back for the tournament, apparently. They're not the biggest team, but they shouldn't have any issue with Wilmington here. I'm going to keep riding Texas Tech. I think they got a decent draw here in the bracket, too, if everyone stays healthy.
Gav, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a little similar to the Iowa State situation, health-wise, right? Chance McMillan, Texas Tech hasn't seen 100% in a long time. I mean, Toppin's missed time, McMillan's missed time. They've had guys in and out. The ceiling of this team, is giving Houston the only home loss they have in their 2 years in the Big Ten without the Big 12 Player of the Year and without their head coach, who is probably another top 20, top 25 coach in the country. And Houston's only lost since November. That's their ceiling, but the question is, how healthy are they, right? Darian Williams, extremely versatile, power forward. And, McMillan's working on a 40, 60, 90 year to give you his level of efficiency that he's only 88% from the line. But yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, if they were fully healthy, it would be a legit Final Four contender in this spot. I just don't know how healthy they really are.
Stats, what do you think? Anything crazy in this game?
I don't know about this game. I'm pretty confident Texas Tech moves on. These guys seem pretty high on on Texas Tech possibly making a deep run. I'll give you my, just some of those trends again. This is another one of those teams that was unranked coming into the season and is now in the top 10 in the rankings. And they also have a coach who has been snake bitten. So they've got 2 strikes against them on my metrics.
Nothing makes me happier.
He's been snake bitten because he coached at North Texas for 10 years.
Nothing makes me happier, Stats, than you needling Steve. It's the best. I love you needling him.
I get it.
In our defense,
some of these category is rookie coaches. So you can't say a rookie coach comes in with a good team. Even rookie coaches, they've underperformed their seed. Yes, he has been at a lesser school. But they were unranked coming in. I stick with my game plan when I fill out these brackets. I'll acquiesce here at Texas Tech, but I'm gonna probably have them get knocked out in quite a few of my brackets.
Does it count if we had them top 10 before the year?
No, actually.
Yeah. Well, we can't have a show where
did you really like them coming in?
Yeah. They were a big
25-1 preseason Final Four.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now it's starting to make you guys are talking up your book. You're so I get it. I get it.
We got confirmation bias all year. I think stats though it does bring up kind of the greater conversation of trends, right? And what trends are useful. I tend to value something like a Mountain West being so miserable ATS, as a heavy home court elevation conference, now going on to neutral sites. When you start talking kind of teams in out of the AP poll, the AP poll is a bunch of fucking idiots. These people had Kansas #1 this year. They're terrible. They had UNC 1 last year. They missed the tournament. They don't know anything.
I don't disagree, but it's an interesting read. It's long. I don't know if we it's the internet. We could find it somewhere, but it's from 15 years ago. The Nate Silver. It was a pretty interesting read. But I agree. I mean, what the hell do these people know? It's a bunch of journalists and they don't know shit. But it seemed to work over time. Hey, I need some sort of a strategy when I'm filling out these brackets to try to win.
No, this is the ones that you brought up before. I don't mind. I will bang the table for Texas Tech, though.
Got it. All right.
We got to have disagreements anyways on the show.
Of course.
That's what makes it. You got to needle Steve. It makes the show good. I love it. Let's move on to another team that Gavin just said sucks, and I know sucks because I watched them a bunch, and I think they're horrible. Kansas, open 5, down to 4.5. Arkansas, 145.5. 21 KenPom versus 40 KenPom. I think I heard Arkansas's guys coming back. Steve, what's the deal? I hope I can pick against Kansas because I think they stink.
So we get Bill Self versus Calipari in the first round. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah. That doesn't sound good in Cal's favor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So Arkansas is going to be at a coaching mismatch in this one.
Did he ever backpedal, by the way, on his foul or miss the free throw up 3 comment from the one night?
No.
Or did he just stick with it?
He just stood his ground.
He didn't double down, though, did he? Like, say he meant it or anything?
There's no chance that they could have meant it, right?
I think he just, like, misspoke, but I never followed up if he actually said anything else about it.
Yeah. Well, that was like in one of the tournaments, Gavin, this weekend. Do you remember when the team tied it and then they intentional fouled because they didn't know that it was a tie game with like 4 seconds left?
Yeah, I don't believe that was any Ivy League institution just going out on a limb.
It was not Drake as well.
No, definitely not Drake. Yeah, so Flan's gonna play. We thought he was just shutting it down because he's gonna be a lottery
last time he played?
So he hasn't played in a while.
Here's the stats, right? The first 7 games of the SEC, they were 93rd overall with the 362nd effective field goal percentage, right? The offense was barely inside the top 200 that stretch. The last 13 games, which is mostly when Boogie Flan was gone, 28th overall, they turned into a top 20 defense, and they started living at the free throw line because Janelle Davis, one of the best transfers in the offseason, got a hold of the reins. And the offense, started at least looking much better. There was much more clarity around roles, right? So the issue is not is the offense better with Boogie? No, the offense should be better with Boogie. The issue is, will Calipari do anything different than what he did when he had Davis and Flan, which I can't count on that, fossil of a corpse thing to ever, think that he can evolve schemes on the fly with a couple days, prep. Just given a lack of success early on. So that's the issue with, Boogie coming back.
Yeah, my bet in this game is the under. I think it's going to be a super inefficient game from both ends for what Gav said, and Kansas has been inefficient the entire year. I just think the total's too high. I took under 146.
What's the dude you said is it from Florida International, or was that who it was? That kid?
Yeah. Nelly Davis.
He was one of the Final Four heroes.
Yeah, so he was a big transfer get and was not playing that much early in conference play. He was coming off the bench. When Flan got hurt, he started playing like mid-30s a game, and they started to score.
Stats, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, these are two teams that are much better on the defensive side than they are on the offensive side. I'm not a big fan of Coach Cal in the tournament. So I'm going to go with Kansas. The number's right on it's pretty much where the market is as far as when we're looking at these numbers. So I'll take the 7 seed. I'll take Kansas to advance.
Yeah, I don't have a strong lean on the game, and I'm not taking either of these teams over St. John, so I don't think it matters too much for the overall.
So let's just take Kansas. Coach Cal always sucks in these games, coin flip games. I think Kansas sucks too, but whatever. All right,
I've lost a lot of Calcutta money watching Calipari teams not be able to shoot the ball.
My whole family's diehard Kentucky too. Steve saw it.
I felt so bad in that game. I just hid in the back of the kitchen. I was like, I'm not talking about you.
Are you talking about the K-State game?
All of them, the last 4 years.
No, it was the one where they lost to the 14 or 15 seed. That was at Tony's house.
Last year they lost to Oakland with some 38-year-old that looked like me was stroking on.
Yeah, he made 14.
Everything finally fell right for me in the Calcutta. I get a 9 seed Kansas State up against Kentucky, and they can't. Up a 9.5-point favorite, they couldn't come through. So,
all right, St. John's. I think this will be another quick one, but St. John's, Omaha. Anything in this game that sticks out, Steve?
No, this is going to be St. John's extreme ball pressure against Omaha. If you haven't seen anything from Omaha's run, pull it up on Twitter. It's pretty cool. They basically have a trash can bit that they do after every game, where they're doing WWE moves to whatever trash can they can find in the road locker room. So, that was cool for a while, but now they have to play St. John's in Providence. So, sayonara.
Anybody else? Gav, anything with St. John's?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be a referee in Providence and start making calls against Rick Pitino? I mean, your life will be on the line. That's more dangerous than threatening the Clintons. The Johnnies do look kind of funky as a 2 seed. They're ranked on KenPom below 8 seed Gonzaga. But that defense is so damn good. I mean, and Rick Pitino, You know, Rick Pitino is one of the best coaches of all time. So, you know, how St. John's doesn't do it. You know, they had 8 games hitting 3 or less 3-pointers. You know, the shooting can be kind of variant time to time, but if they get any shooting, you know, does have some pretty good upside to them for a good run.
Stats. What else was St. John's?
I think their shooting being bad is an understatement. This is one of the worst teams in the entire tournament with 3-point shooting, but they do defend the 3-point shot fairly well. But that does come up in my article. This is the 3rd team that was unranked coming into the preseason and is now ranked in the top 10. Someone mentioned UConn. They did. UConn was actually one team. The record is now 3-61 for teams that fit that criteria who have made the Final Four.
3-61 since
3-61. Yeah, and UConn was the first team to win it all. So St. John's, I will be rooting for St. John's. I love Pitino, and I always got to root for the Johnnies when they get there. But I am not expecting a deep run from St. But I do love watching them play. I love all Pitino teams. Watching Pitino teams is a lot of fun.
So St. John's started the year 19th at KenPom, though.
This is AP.
I know. I'm just saying. Texas Tech was 12 at KenPom to start the year.
He gets so tilted every time you say it, and I love it. It's perfect.
Well, these are top. These teams were top 15 teams to start the year, based on all the analytics.
Not in the AP. We're talking about the AP trend.
What we're saying is the idiot journalists know more than the analytics.
What's the record, Stats? Tell them.
3-61.
3-61, Steve.
Was actually that brings me up a question, Stats. Was Florida in the top 25 start this year at AP?
I'm pretty sure they were because they're not on my list.
Probably barely. Because if they weren't, then there might be none of the top 4 seeds in this bracket. But I guess they were.
No, it was just those 3 teams that we mentioned. It was like Texas Tech, St. John's, and Michigan State.
What you guys were talking about, the shot charts. I'll retweet that thread too later tonight.
Yeah.
But some of the shot charts, people might laugh at that, but being a basketball guy, it's important. You don't want all these mid-range shots and missed threes, and that's just you're not going to win 6 games in a row like that.
To give St. John's some credit here, they don't take barely any threes, so they know
that a good thing though.
And that conference has a bunch of drop coverage teams where they force you into the mid-range.
When you shoot that from 3, it's good that you don't shoot a bunch.
Yeah, I mean,
otherwise you're Illinois.
I definitely have my concerns, but this is the #1 defense in the country on KenPom this year.
Oh yeah, I was wondering that about Alabama State, who didn't. They were chucking up threes all night tonight, and they can't hit.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe it.
I was like, that was odd, and then they win the game. But
yeah, all right, let's look through the rest of this one real quick. Looks like 4 chalk right here, but Steve, any upset cities here?
Nah, I'm full chalk here, and I'm pretty confident in all the top seeds in this quadrant. What I said at the start of this quad was I would have that each of the 2, 3, and 4 seeds in the Elite 8 in the South.
Let's see. We got pretty wide numbers here looking at each one. Yeah, Gav, what do you think? Any possible upsets?
I'd say the most likely non-first round upsets would be the elite Missouri offense just completely outscoring Texas Tech in a high variance shootout. I think that is one way, especially if Tech isn't healthy. Or dare I say it, my God, this Kansas team sucks ass, but they are a no middle defense, and they're going to force St. John's to shoot from the outside. And if they can, find themselves on the right side of splits in one game, and St. John's is fouling to alleviate some of the, ease of points concern on the Kansas side, then, I guess they could have a chance. But those are probably the only 2, and I had to really stretch to get those out the way.
Stats, you got the record.
I would agree. No, I would agree. I think those are the 2 most likely ones: is Missouri and Kansas to advance. And I hate to be chalky, but I think Florida makes it to the Final Four here.
This is our show bracket, though. Do we want an upset in here somewhere, or are we sticking with chalk?
Todd Golden has 0 NCAA tournament wins. But think about this, Tony. Florida right now is the 4 overall seed, right? they have a substantially higher Ken Palm rating than UConn did before last year's tourney, to give you an idea how good these ones are.
I never like picking the ones, and I just don't see how they lose this year. They're so much better than everyone else. But
yeah, so
was the last time we had like that year that it was Illinois and North Carolina in the final? Was that like all one? Was that all ones that year?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if we'll see that, but there is a chance of it.
So
I'm sure they'll get knocked off somewhere, but man, it looks tough for it to happen.
I think. Well, we're going to get to the Houston. I think Houston might be the weakest.
Yeah, me too.
It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's just that you have to understand, if you are going to not play them, you are flying in the face of some of the best analytical teams that we have seen in 20 years of college basketball. And they just keep that in mind.
People, man, every game. I didn't follow it close like you guys, but every time they just pound the shit out of teams.
I love this Florida team.
Florida.
Yeah. The issue with the Terps here, and I'm high on the Terps, is Florida's just so deep at every spot. And Maryland's called the Crab 5 for a reason. They're not called the Crab 6. So any foul trouble in that game and they're screwed. Texas Tech and St. John's, I'll let Gav talk about. He'll probably give you a better stylistic matchup thing there.
Gav.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech does have enough ball handling, not only with their point guard, but, having a guy like Darian Williams who can handle it out of the middle, it does set up pretty well for them draw-wise. But there just comes a point where that St. John's team is able to just completely shut water off for teams, for extended stretches. But, Texas Tech has as good a chance as, just about any other offense in the country to be able to score on that defense.
Texas Tech is going to be like a 2-point favorite in that game.
Steve, who you got? Who's playing Florida?
Well, these are two teams that don't fit Stats' model. So
we're all picking it.
Go ahead, man.
Texas Tech.
Yeah, who's playing them?
Yeah, I'll go Texas Tech.
Stats, who's playing them?
I'm fine with that. Texas Tech for me.
You already got outvoted. Who's playing them, though? You need your pick.
Who's playing? What are you talking about?
For the show, we're going Texas Tech, but who you got? Who you think?
I would have both teams out already. So
who you got then? Who you got playing Florida? If you have one bracket,
I'm going to take Missouri, Florida.
I kind of like whoever was talking about Missouri getting hot.
Mizzou's just super high variance and lots of turnovers and
like you said, when in doubt, lean on the SEC a little bit.
Missouri has some really good. Missouri has some really good marks against better teams in the country too. They played up well to competition, especially in the SEC.
All right, let's go up to Duke. Duke versus who is it? Mary? Not that it matters. Duke versus some bum team. Steve, talk about the Dukies. First of all, do we think Cooper Flagg sits the first game, plays the second, sits the whole weekend, plays the whole weekend? What do you think happens?
So I'll start with this. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have any inside info. I assume he sits. They gave Duke the Friday, Sunday, of course, instead of the Thursday, Saturday. I would be shocked if he played on Friday. I think he plays. I don't know how much he plays. They aren't going to need him against either of the teams in the second round. We'll get to that game, but that's just a classic noon tip 8-9 game.
Yeah, what about Duke?
Yeah, I mean, the defense was pretty foreseeable, just given kind of the length they had, the most switchable, defender in the entire country in Flagg. But, the offense was kind of what was crazy. It peaked at number 1 in the country. It's really hard to nitpick what this team has. But, Flagg-wise, I think we see him play. It sounds like he's getting pretty healthy, and I don't think Flagg's going to be the guy who's like, yeah, I don't really want to play. I don't think that's really kind of his mindset. I see them giving him, 18 to 20 minutes, get your sea legs under you, after having, a week plus off and then get ready, full go for the next one.
Stats, Duke thoughts?
Yeah, not much else to add. I think this is, not going out on a limb, they're probably the best team in the tournament. So, I'm gonna have to get them. I'm gonna have them going pretty deep, if not all the way.
All right,
next that's game. Contrary to a lot of people will. So you're probably gonna want to, in a large pool, you're probably gonna want to take someone else.
Still, I mean, like we all said though, if it's 3 or 4 of the ones, I mean, you're going to be pretty chalky either way. We're going to have to separate early. All right, Mississippi State Baylor. We got 1.5 point spread. Mississippi State's favored. 143 total up to 144.5. 32 Ken Palm versus 29 Ken Palm. So noon tip, close game. 2, I'm sure, not great teams. Steve, what do we got?
Is it actually a noon tip?
I thought I was just going with what you said. I have no idea what the game is.
I'll look it up. Well, it just feels like
a noon tip game, though.
It just feels like the first game on Friday. Everyone's a little hungover, kind of ease into the day.
It feels like it. That's why I thought it was true.
These are 2 just full meh teams that have not been great at all down the stretch. Baylor has had to go zone because they lost their best interior defender, Ojinwuna, and now they face a team that cannot shoot. So they're going to zone them. It's a noon tip, first game Friday. That's awesome. So Mississippi State can't shoot at all, but they're a great offensive rebounding team. So, how that works against the zone, we'll see. Baylor clearly has more talent and big-time athletes. They have a top 10 pick on their team. So it's kind of pick your poison. Baylor 361st away from home this season. I lean Baylor because I just don't think that Mississippi State is built to beat a zone. But I kind of want to hear what Gav thinks on this one.
When in doubt, SEC, Gav. When in doubt, SEC.
But it's an SEC game. So.
It's two no middle defenses, elite at keeping teams away from the cup. But Baylor's the way better jump shooting team. So the stylistic matchup points to them, but like Steve said, bad away from home. They're also dead last in the country in Haslam's what's called paper tiger, which means they did not play up to good competition very well at all. They're 5-12 in Q1 games, and Mississippi State was much better, playing the top of the SEC. So really comes down to kind of, do you trust Mississippi State as the team that plays better, or do you like kind of the matchup that Baylor has? I tend to trust Baylor. Having the NBA guy, I think is certainly going to help. But boy, they're going to have to survive for their lives, and Omir's going to have to stay out of foul trouble if they want to have any chance at this.
Yeah.
So to be redundant with how I look at games, 59-41. I got the SEC team and the favorite at a lower ownership. Stats. What do we think here?
Yeah, I'm going to wind up in agreement with you with this. Now, I think Baylor wins this game, but in the bracket, it just you're getting some pretty good leverage here if you're going to be 60-40.
Yep, I agree
on that side. And it's really what these guys said. I just don't like teams that don't shoot the 3 all that well. This is one of the worst teams in the tournament in Mississippi State as far as shooting the 3-pointer.
31% as a team from 3.
Yeah, 31%. Trying to see if I have them because sometimes how are they defending it? Now they're not up there as one of the top defensive teams.
The 314th defending the 3, and
both these teams make you shoot it over the top.
Yeah, top 50 and 3-point attempts per field goal. So
I think Baylor. I like Baylor to win the game, but I think from a game theory standpoint here, you probably have to take Mississippi State.
Yep.
And this is one thing too that I don't think people are very good at. Like they always think just because they pick a team in their bracket that they can't just go and bet the other side. There is nothing wrong with using game theory in your bracket to make a good bracket pick and then just bet the other team. There's literally nothing wrong with that. That's smart if nothing else. So
I usually sit there on day one, and except for a few teams, that I'm going to have the team in every bracket going, winning or whatever. But I never know what the hell I need. It's like DFS. It's like I sit there. My dad just moved down here, so like if I'm watching a game with him, he'll be like, "So we're watching golf or whatever." He's like, "Well, what do you need?" I go, "I have no idea.
We don't know yet.
I have no idea.
We got to wait till
in a few hours, and we'll figure it out."
Absolutely. Let's move on to another somewhat trendy team that I've heard people talk about, but we got Oregon -6.5 up to 7, 139.5 versus Liberty, 31 Ken Palm versus 59 Ken Palm. Steve, what do we got?
Yes, Oregon gets to play this in Seattle, the last game on Friday night. Really tough spot for Liberty. They got to go cross country entirely. Liberty's in Virginia, for those who don't know. They shoot a ton of threes, try to increase variance, but I I just think Oregon's positional size everywhere is going to give them fits. We trust Altman in the tournament. We know that. I think this is the 12th seed with the least chance to win, and I don't think it's really close. The spread agrees. It's run out to 7.5 already. I grabbed it at open. So I love Oregon here.
Gav.
Yeah, I mean, Liberty's another one of these mid-major half-court execution darlings. You know, they have elite spacing. They're top 5 both sides of the three-point line percentage-wise, you know, which crushes in low major and mid-major competition, but, you know, doesn't play up to some of these better teams, right? Oregon's been really good the last 6 games when they put Kwame Evans in the lineup. They've been a top 10 defense in that span. So, yeah, the size will certainly overwhelm. And the reason I bring up Evans doesn't have as much to do with Liberty as much as it has to do with the next game, in that it's going to be a really interesting spot for Oregon. And, you know, I'll give it up that I'm picking Arizona to advance, but it puts Oregon in a much, much better spot against an Arizona team that's going to be on short prep against Dana Altman with Tommy Lloyd, who still quite hasn't broken through. Kind of the more that I was thinking about and talking myself into it, I think that could be a potentially interesting upset spot to look at.
Stats, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The betting markets have this a little bit tighter than what we're seeing. So like 75%-ish in the betting markets. But I think I'm just going to wind up taking Oregon here. I think in a lot of pools, people just like to take the 12. So maybe that number will go up a bit. But I mean, I think Oregon wins the game. I have my lines a little bit higher than the actual line in the market. So I think I'm going to lean on Oregon here.
I like it. Seems pretty cut and dry. Now we move to Arizona, Akron, 13.5 spread up to 14. Massive total, 166 up to 167. 14 Ken Palm versus 97 Ken Palm, it looks like. And it looks like another mismatch, more chalk. But, Steve, what do we got?
This is the best bet of the entire first round.
Best bet? I like that.
There is no chance that this should be 14. Arizona is going to put the boots to Akron in this game.
Belt to ass?
Yeah. Akron's a top 20 pace team with a 6'3" power forward. They're 361st in height against one of the biggest teams in the country with a deep front court. This is Zona belt to ass. I laid the 2 touchdowns. I don't mind a team total over. I actually like Arizona's draw going into Duke. I'm going to have to argue with Gav upcoming on that next game. Cool old Pac-12 matchup if this 4-5 goes through. I cannot believe this line. I think they're going to win by 20 plus.
Gav.
This is not belt to ass. This is flaming paddle of death to face is what this is. I mean, let me just read out some of these.
Great.
I started looking at Arizona against teams that push them that are ranked between 100 and 200 on Ken Palm. So not teams where there's maybe a close talent gap, but teams that are going to push them and they can run, right? 104 points against Davidson, 96 against Sanford, 94 against Central Michigan, 100 against Belmont, 101 against UTA, 95 against FAU. Like this, you don't run with Arizona. They are meant to pulverize bad teams. But that being said, Akron does have one path where they're going to bomb 3-pointers, right? They played 9 guys 10 plus minutes in the MAC championship, and James Okonkwo was the only guy who didn't take a 3. So there's shooters all over the floor. That is the only way that they don't survive. But Arizona should whip that ass on this one.
Stats, strong takes going. Any disagreement, or are you on board?
Yeah, I mean, I don't certainly like Arizona to advance here. Looking at them deep in the tournament, scoring margin is a huge thing. Teams, the 1 through 4 seeds that have scored have a scoring margin under 10. There've been 177 of them, and only 10 of them. I'm sorry, under 10. Only 2 have actually won a championship, and 13 of those 177 have advanced to the Final Four. So there's a few of them here. Arizona's one of them. They're just under the 10, so take it with a grain of salt. They're 9.3 on their scoring margin, but that's another one of those trends that I do look at.
I agree with nice Kevin. Where was the preseason AP? Did they crack in there for Boynton?
They did. I'll let you know where they were. Well, they weren't in the top 10. It's only teams that are in the top 10. They're not top 10 right now in the
top 10.
It's only for teams that finish in the top 10.
Right. They started the year 8th at Ken Palm, ended 14.
Love it. All right, let's move on. BYU, VCU. BYU open 2.5 up to 3, 143.5. We got another 3-point jump in the total up to 146.5. 24 Ken Palm versus 30 Ken Palm. Pretty close matchup, Steve. And again, the pick. No, even if you don't, it's just these things stick out. 67 to 33. Somewhat tight spread. It seems interesting to me, but what do you think?
Yeah, love the matchup for VCU here. BYU the entire season has struggled with physicality, guard pressure, and that's what VCU's calling card is. They're going to, give it to them in bunches. And they also have the number one rim defense in the country with the freshman who I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. It's like Bamboy and Furman at the rim to back up the tenacious guard pressure. VCU's a legit pain in the ass to play against. They're number one in effective field goal percentage defense nationwide. I was listening to the 3-man weave, and Root kind of compared them, to like mini Houston, who beat the shit out of BYU twice this season. If BYU shoots, 50% from 3, which, they have in their wins this year, then so be it. I lean VCU out right here. I took the +3. I think the only main thing working against them is they have to travel to Denver here to face BYU up at altitude after playing in the A-10 championship on Sunday.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If I'm a VCU alum, I'm dragging committee members up for congressional depositions and asking how this happens. Cross country to Denver on a Sunday to Thursday turnaround versus a team that's already, an elevation team. That's about as brutal as it gets. On top of it, BYU's 5th on Torvik since February 10th. It's a 5-week sample. It's not insignificant, right? So, they have been much better down the stretch. 1 on Ken Palm, 3 in the market means, the spot is fully baked in. I'm a little bit surprised that money's coming in on the over. I think it is moving up towards the Ken Palm number. I think it opened a little bit short, but I could see where VCU isn't shooting extremely well from the perimeter, given the travel with the BYU, super compact, almost quasi zone looks, and BYU struggling with the pressure of VCU, like Steve said. So I kind of think that might be a way.
Stats. What do we think here?
Yeah, I hate the fact that they have to travel across the country, play in the elevation against BYU. But if these numbers are correct, the proper play is VCU on your bracket based on where the market is right now. But I don't feel very confident in that pick.
Boynton sold me. I like listening to the three of you talk, and it helps me form my own opinions. Boynton sold me on VCU. They seem like a good player.
So if they're Houston mini, BYU played Houston twice this year, lost 86-55 and 74-54.
Yeah, I'm sold. I won a few upsets too in my bracket. So
yeah, this is one of the only ones that I picked outright to win in the betting market too. So
love it. Let's move on to another pretty lopsided game. Wisconsin, Montana. Wisconsin open 16.5 up to 17. 149 total. Another one that jumped 3 points up to 152. 13 Ken Palm versus 159 Ken Palm. Looks lopsided. Is it, Steve?
Yeah, the only plus for Montana here is, again, Wisconsin's got to go to altitude to play Montana. This game's also in Denver. And I guess, the other plus is their best player's name is Money Williams. So, they got that going for them. But no, this is all Wisco here. Easy path for Wisconsin in this game. I want to lay the points, Gav, but I haven't yet with this up-tempo version of Wisconsin. Montana got eviscerated by Oregon and Tennessee in the non-conference. Teams from the Big Sky just get their doors blown off in this tournament. So there's not a chance I would take Montana in the game, and I want to lay the big number with Wisconsin. I just haven't done it yet.
I got a question too, just thinking through it. What's the most point underdog you guys usually take in a bracket to win? Because you gotta stick a little bit close to the vest early on. What's the number? Stats, you're the numbers guy. What Like, what's too big of a number to take an upset on? Or is there none?
It's really not, because I think you have to. I work the bracket backwards. So like I said before, if I don't like Michigan State going deep, I'll just take them out in the first game, and I'll sacrifice 2 points in my pool with the chance of winning 15 points. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I don't have a set rule that way.
It's all dependent on the bracket too, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, usually I don't take anyone over like 2 possessions. I think the only one that I have over that is Yale right now, just because of the reasons that we talked about.
Love it. Gav, what do you think of this game?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if we thought the VCU travel was bad, they only played 3 games in 3 days. Wisconsin played 4 and 4 in the Big Ten. So, you know, it's actually an even worse spot. But, you know, they get helped by the fact that Montana is a historically bad 14 seed. You know, they're 157th on KenPom. All 4 15 seeds are ranked ahead of them. And they're a very small team. So, you know, they're going to have a ton of trouble with their small guards containing Blackwell, Tanji. Yeah, this is, you know, Wisconsin kind of petered out, you know, as a team that's really driven kind of by a couple guys offensively, you know, lost their legs in kind of a rock fight, you know, against Michigan. But this is, you know, a pretty good spot that if they don't come out and just shoot like absolute crap, which they, you know, were not really doing much of during the regular season, that this should be a pretty comfy win here.
Yeah, and we're getting a discount on the number based on KenPom because of the travel. So I might be laying that 17. I mean, this is a Wisconsin score 90 spot for me, Gav.
Stats. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I take the travel and proximity to home court into account when I figure out the lines here. I think we're getting too many points. I think this is like an under Montana as far as the betting market goes. I think we'll see. If you like the under, I think then you just take the points with it and parlay that. So if you think the altitude is going to slow them down a little bit, I think that gets you there on both sides, a little parlay. But yeah, there's no doubt Wisconsin advances in the game.
Yeah, to second that, Stats, I mean, if you want to bet a Montana under, I mean, they have been on a generational offensive heater. In the last 2 months, they're a top 10 2-point percentage and the second best 3-point percentage in the country, which I'd be willing to bet all my family members and some that they are not that good offensively. So that is one thing going in your favor.
Love
it.
Love the it's due. I love playing the it's due.
The do theory.
Yeah, they are due to slow down.
Let's move on. St. Mary's, Vandy, 4.5 at open, down to 4, 137.5, down to 136.5. St. Mary's is 22 KenPom versus 48 KenPom of Vandy. Steve, what do we got?
I'm going to get out of the way and let Gav take this one because he's the #1 St. Mary's fan on the show here.
Yeah, you know, you're going to have another pretty big stylistic clash here, right?
Yeah.
Vandy's going to want to run in transition, and you just can't speed up St. Mary's. You know, Vandy's much more susceptible in the half court, but they're also going to spam pick and roll, you know, over and over and over, which St. Mary's actually been hunted in pick and roll defense at the highest rate in the nation, and it has not always been pretty. So doesn't really quite set up for them well. You know, Vandy kind of thrives on the turnover differential that they, you know, create in games, but St. Mary's pretty sure-handed offensively, you know, should be able to smash them inside. There's no way I can bet against my Gales, so I'm a little bit nervous at just kind of how high the number's gotten. So I'll probably be passing on this.
Stats. What do we think?
Yeah, passing. I'm going to pass on it from a bet standpoint as well, but I think we're getting a little bit of value with St. Mary as far as brackets go. So I'll have St. Mary's advancing.
Yeah, we can't have Gav on the show and not pick St. Mary's in our bracket. You know,
I might just log off.
He might just log out of the show.
So what's going to happen so we can just go right into it actually and work back. So Alabama, I assume, has to have the quickest tempo or close in the league or in the nation, and St. Mary's plays slow. So what's going to give in that matchup, Steve?
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Bama down the stretch, lost to Florida twice and Tennessee. It's going to be interesting. Like I'm super high on Bama just as a team, especially in a tournament setting with the back-to-back with how deep they are. The issue here is the Grant Nelson injury. He's probably going to sit the Friday game against Bob Morris. I am not going to be fading Bama in the first weekend. I've got futures on Bama from before the season, and they haven't shown me anything. So the teams they've lost to since the new year are Florida, who's a 1 seed, Auburn, who's the number 1 overall seed, and Tennessee, who's the 2 seed. So, yeah, I'm not going to be taking Bama to lose to St. Mary's. There's just such an athletic discrepancy there that I think that they're just going to overwhelm them, honestly.
Yeah, what do you think about your St. Mary's squad versus Bama?
Yeah, my heart wants to say that Bama is susceptible with how leaky this defense has been over the last month plus. But, yeah, I mean, they got elite drop coverage dribble creators, multiple of them to throw at the St. Mary's drop coverage. So it's my head is telling me, no, we got to go Bama here.
All right, stats. Any objection at all to just Bama?
No, I mean, you look at a lot of the models have this almost a pretty high percentage for Bama to get out and get into the Sweet 16. So I'm going to stick with Alabama.
All right, the rest of this one, I'm assuming we all got Duke because none of us liked Mississippi State.
Yep.
This battle, though, Oregon, Arizona, I think Gav said something about Steve said he wanted to wrestle with Gav about this one. So what do we got in this matchup?
We've agreed the entire show, so we can't agree on everything. Go ahead, Gav.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dana Altman has had success versus Tommy Lloyd in the past in the Pac-12. The fact that it's on short prep only favors Oregon more because Arizona is much more of a straightforward scout. Like I said, playing much better with Kwame Evans in the lineup, who is a good basketball player. I just wasn't playing enough early on. Team is overall defensively much better. Elite presence to guard, the Arizona rim attack. So I think it kind of sets up well, and I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona was a very popular pick to be entering the Sweet 16 there.
What's the objection, Steve?
Yeah, so since Arizona has gone to this larger lineup where they're playing more Vasar, more Carter Bryant, I just really like the upside of this team, especially in the tournament. Like, they've got so much positional size on this team that I just think they're a really tough matchup. And the reason I like them is because they are the type of size team that you need to play a team like Duke, who's like one of the biggest teams in the country. So I think Duke Arizona would be super interesting. They played earlier in the year on a neutral before Vasar was playing big minutes. So I actually think either of these teams could give Duke a really good game in that Sweet 16 game, honestly.
Stats, you're the tiebreaker here. Who are we going, Oregon or Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, Steve obviously doesn't know what he's talking about, so I'm going to go with I'm going to go Oregon here.
Yeah,
we can't have the matchup that he wants.
Yeah,
so, and Arizona is just notoriously over bet in pools and brackets, so I think we'll have an advantage here taking Oregon.
And on the other side, I think you guys like Wisconsin, but I got sold on VCU a little bit with Steve's selling points there. What are we doing here? Are we going whiskey or do we got an upset?
You just hate the Big Ten.
I do hate the Big Ten. I'll admit it. I hate the Big Ten. I think they stink.
I don't mind taking VCU because I want to see Bama Duke. So.
We don't have much. I don't mind taking some upsets. Gav, what do you think? Can we take VCU or is it just clearly Wisconsin?
You can. It's not out of the question. They'll be live enough, but they just don't have the offensive upside that Wisconsin does to be able to shoot out with them. So it's going to be a tough game for both of them. Like we were talking about, both the teams in the bad travel spots on short rest. So I think I kind of trust Wisconsin a little more.
Stat, is it whiskey? We don't have to take an upset. This is our bracket.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Wisconsin on this one.
Yeah, let's go Wisconsin.
Okay. And then we got Duke, Oregon, Wisconsin, Bama. What do we got here, Steve?
Bama for me.
Bama, Duke. Gav?
Bama over Duke.
Bama over Duke. Steve,
Yep.
You got Duke over Bama?
I had Bama in the Final Four.
You both got Bama over Duke.
Oh, come on.
Okay, stats. What's the deal here?
Oh man, I can't. I kind of like Duke. I kind of like Duke here, but I'm going to take Bama as well. But to get to the Duke game, I'll take and then I like Duke over Alabama.
I definitely like Duke too, but we got to go with the two,
let's
two
go with it.
showrunners here. So we'll go Bama. We'll get a little different here with Bama in the Final Four.
They were going to have to go through Duke at some point. So,
I love it because I want to get a little different in this bracket.
Yeah.
Bama is the type of offense where their best offensive game, it doesn't even really matter a whole lot what the other team is doing. They can just completely overwhelm teams for the 3-point line.
Bama,
that's what you got to do against Duke.
All right, Houston. Obviously, let's do what we did with the other 1 seeds, though. Steve, what's the general notes on Houston? Obviously, they're going to roll in this first game more than likely, but I think we're all a little lower on them than the other ones. Not lower in general, but what's the deal?
I only have 2 quick notes on this first game in general. We've just been spamming first half unders for Duke or for Houston in the first round of the tournament. Cashed by like 15 points last year. I hit that. And then check out the stat per Matthew Winnick, who I know Gavin knows. In their 5 games against sub-100 KenPom teams this season, yes, they've only played 5 games against teams outside the top 100. That's how crazy good their scheduling was. Their winning margins were 57, 46, 36, 29, and 36.
Yeah.
Just built to bludgeon really bad teams.
I'm assuming that their weakness still is just when they struggle to score. Like I haven't watched.
Yeah, so that's their weakness, and like their junkyard dog big is hurt. He's going to come back, but we don't know what his health is because there's no way that he's going to tell anyone. He's like a guy where he's going to play through anything. So Juwan Roberts, who's been on their team for several years, is banged up right now. So this is the best shooting Houston team that we've seen. It's the same pace. It's the same top 2 defense. They can get a little hairy when the threes aren't falling because, Gav, correct me if I'm wrong, they have the lowest like rim rate in the country, or like lowest near
rim and 3.
Rate. Yeah. So if they're not scoring from beyond the arc, I think they're gettable.
Gav, what's your Houston notes?
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time that a Kelvin Sampson team has been inside the top 100 in 3-point percentage since 2018. Now, those also include years in the softer American Conference against those defenses as well. And they're the 4th best 3-point shooting team in the country. So, yeah, it makes them much tougher to get this year. And, you know, it's always tough betting against Kelvin Sampson. You go pretty broke doing that. So this is, you know, I think one of the safer teams, but my God, this second round game, you know, when you have the
Saturday game is going to be so good.
When you have a top 10 KenPom team lurking on the 8 line, it's never a straightforward path.
Stats. We could talk about Houston and then just go into the Gonzaga thing because, man, when I was putting my notes together, how in the world is Gonzaga an 8 seed and number 9 KenPom? I don't understand that. As a numbers guy, like what do they just have bad losses or something?
No. So their analytical ranking is driven by beating the absolute piss out of those bad teams, right? And then when they play really good teams, they are running into late game variance where they're not winning the game outright, but they're still highly competitive with really good teams rated highly in the stats. So that's why their analytical ranking stays buoyed at the level that it does.
And yeah, just to go, because then stats can talk about it. So Gonzaga 8-9 matchup, 6.5 point favorite, 151 total. And then obviously you got 9 KenPom versus 34 KenPom. I mean, stats, like, what do you do with situations like this? Is it just slam Gonzaga in there?
Yeah, you know, it's weird. I don't know if I've ever seen an 8 seed like that high in the KenPom. When I do the I use KenPom quite a bit for the Calcuttas and whatnot. This could totally be anecdotal, but more often than not, I have a high value on them going into the auctions and the Calcuttas. Mm-hmm. It seems like the teams that get kind of screwed with their seeding they don't live up to the KenPom rating. They kind of I think they play more to the rating to the seed that they get than they necessarily do to their KenPom. Now in this game, I think it's just I think we may be getting too much. Too many people are going to take Gonzaga here. I'll probably take Georgia in my with my bracket, even though Gonzaga here pretty decent. Not a huge favorite, but I think Georgia's probably the sharper play from a bracket standpoint, because I don't think either one of these teams are getting by Houston in the next game.
It is a good point that you made too, talking about your game theory of the brackets. Like, even if you think Gonzaga is better, which they are, obviously, there is still strategy where if they're going to lose the next one, you're picking up points on the field pretty significantly.
Especially in this spot too, where like everyone knows Gonzaga.
Yep.
No one knows anything about Georgia. Georgia can
Gonzaga's
win.
before Gonzaga saved face by beating St. Mary's for the final time and going 1-2 against them. Their best win in the entire year was the thumping against Baylor, the first game of the year.
Yeah, like all of the games this year, Tony, where they've like played a good team, they've lost a close game. So like they have one really good win. It's Baylor. Besides this, St. Mary's won last week. Georgia is no slouch. Like they've got a top 10 pick freshman. They are what, Gavin? The ninth tallest team in the country. So like
their guards are huge, and Gonzaga, Hickman and Nemhard are not known for their physical stature.
Yeah, so I'm gonna wait on this one's stats, and I'm gonna take the big number on Georgia. I think we get like 7.5 on Georgia here in an 8-9 game. There's no reason to bet it now because I think Gonzaga will continue to take public money. So I'm gonna bet the 7.5. I like taking Georgia in the bracket because we're going to take Houston over whoever wins this game anyways.
Yeah, I agree with you with the betting. I like Georgia here, especially if it gets to 7.5, I'm firing away at that as well.
Yep.
Kevin, what's up?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just too much for an 8-9. It's Georgia has avenues to flustering kind of the continuity motion offense of Gonzaga. So yeah, I'm right there with you guys betting wise.
I definitely like to bet. I just have a mind block that I can't take, even though it makes sense game theory wise. I just can't take a 6.5 point dog in an 8-9 matchup. But
what about our SEC theory?
On our bracket right here, we're going Georgia for sure. But the theory, on my personal, I'm definitely taking.
Yeah, this is SEC against the West Coast Conference.
How many people you think out there are just gonna play all SEC until they play each other and then pick and just like do the whole bracket like that?
I might do.
How many states does that conference span?
Exactly.
So how many? So what? 14 got in and 16 are in the conference.
Something like that. Yeah. And I think the 2 that didn't get in both would have been favored over Carolina. Something like that.
Really? Who was the 2 that didn't get in?
Maybe not Carolina, but
not South Carolina, but
no. The 2 that didn't get in were LSU and South Carolina.
LSU might as well give Will Wade the job back at this point. Hell,
I know.
All right, let's move it along. Clemson versus McNeese, 7.5. Another 12 seed that's just getting no love, which kind of brings us back to the value of those other 12s that we talked about on the other side. But Clemson 7.5, 134.5. 19 Ken Palm versus 60. I remember this McNeese team was a popular team last year, I think, maybe 2 years ago. But it looks obvious here. Steve, what do we got?
Well, it's because their coach is Will Wade, who we just talked about, who could be out the door already, Gav, to a new job. So that's something to think about, too. I think we talked about that last year. The couple of teams where there were coaches who were already rumored, I think they all got pasted in the first round of the tournament. Which makes sense, if you're not all in it and you have to go play, I think one of the highest floor teams in the country, Gavin, Clemson, is just going to be real tough for them. McNeese is led by Syracuse transfer point guard, Kadir Copeland, who's probably going to transfer after they lose this game, and Sincere Parker, who's bounced around. I just don't know how they deal with the 2 bigs inside, Locken and Shefflin. I assume they'll try to double a bunch, but both are good passers. Another interesting 5-12, but I thought Liberty didn't have much of a chance against Oregon. This is the other one that I don't like very much. I think Clemson's just so rock solid at everything. The weakness with Michigan was the turnovers in the 5-12. The thing with the Memphis Colorado State team is just how awesome Colorado State's been in the last 2 months. I just don't see any cracks here in Clemson. And for the bets, I lean the under in this game. Both teams bottom 25 in opponent possession length.
Gav, what do we think?
Yeah, it's going to be a slog, but this is a terrible stylistic match for a team in McNeese that hunts the rim at a top 5 rate in the country, which works in the tiny Southland Conference, but not as much against a really strong double big lineup with Shefflin and Locken. McNeese did look strong in quad 1 this year. Close games to Bama and Mississippi State, but they also had some 3-point clunkers along the way many a time this season. And Clemson is one of the elite 3-point shooting teams in the country versus a no middle McNeese team. So, yeah, Will Wade's probably gone. I mean, he needs a power conference job. He was doing NIL before NIL was cool. So everything's above board now. So, yeah, this is not a good matchup for McNeese.
Stats. What do we got?
Yeah, one thing to look at with the smaller conferences is scoring margin. That these, even though they're in the shitty conference, for those teams to that make, maybe get to the Sweet 16, they've got to have not have to, but oftentimes they have a pretty decent scoring margin. McNeese State does have one of the better scoring margins in the country, 11.2, just ahead of actually Clemson at 10.7. But I don't think it's going to matter in this one. I like Clemson. I think the line's actually a little low. I like Clemson. I'd lay the points here and move on. I think from if we're going to go strictly with the game theory, that 82% is a little high compared to where the market is, but I'm going to go against it, and I'm just going to still take Clemson in this one.
Like it. Let's move on to Purdue and High Point. Purdue is 8.5 open, down to 8, 153.5 high total, 18 Ken Palm versus 85 Ken Palm. High Point's been another team I've heard some buzz about, some memes and stuff with the dude doing the McGregor looking walk thing or whatever. Purdue 85% though. Not that Purdue. I'm still not. I know the one dude got first team All-American or whatever. The dude looks like a midget to me. What's the dude's name, Steve? The good guy?
No, that is your worst take, maybe in the history of rugby sports.
You mean the guy with the 45% assist rate this year?
How tall is he though? Is he like 5'8"?
He's 6'1".
What's his? He's 6'1". My ass. 6'1" on stilts.
Braden Smith. Well, there's going to be no one on High Point doing the McGregor in this game. This is a soft drop coverage against the best drop coverage point guard in the sport. I think this line's too low. I took it at 7.5. I think this is Purdue by double digits here. I know everyone likes High Point, but it's just a really, really bad matchup for them, I think. High Point has played one Power 5 team in 2 years.
Another Big Ten team that you guys love, Gav. I can't wait to hear you stroke them. How much do you love Purdue?
I don't love Purdue. I'll be honest with you. I mean,
we don't like Purdue.
This 5'10" point guard is going to be in Lithuania for you in 2 years, like you tell me. This dude he's a bum. He's a first team All-American.
What do you think? He might also have 28 points and 16 assists in this spot. So I mean, he is not only the best drop coverage point guard assassin in the country, he's probably the best point guard in the country. And High Point got fried by much lesser mid-major lead guards that could score off the bounce and get into the key and initiate the pick and roll game. So, yeah, High Point's a top 25 offense. Like if they attack the rim more against the junior high rim defense of Purdue, then I would be more kind of in on them, both from a scoring point and keeping it more competitive. So I think this is Purdue and over in this spot, but God, this Purdue team is not good if you can bottle up Braden Smith with a little icing ball screen.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard is it to stop a 5'9" white dude? Like, I don't understand how it's that hard.
I don't know. No one's figured it out.
Wait till you see the other 5 foot white guards on that team. You see that he dragged them to as good of a finish as they did. You'll understand.
I mean, I want to be clear. Obviously, he's good. He's a first team All-American.
Yeah.
I don't man.
No, just for some perspective, he's probably going to be 10K in DFS, and he's going to be
I'm playing him. Gab just said he's getting 40 and 16. I'm playing him.
He's going to be a mortal lock
against an awful defense.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be on my roster on whatever Thursday or Friday, whatever day they play.
Yeah, so when he goes 3 for 18, you can yell at us.
He's going to too because he stinks. But stats. What do we got?
Dude, I am the 5'9" white guy you want to play against. That is. I have absolutely. There's no part of my game that is good, and ever was. But I I don't know. I dislike Purdue. I'm going to go back to whether you like the numbers, you don't like the numbers.
Yes.
6.8 scoring margin. 177 teams have been in the top 4 seeds. And again, only 13 of that 177 have advanced to the Final Four. That, we're far from the Final Four in the first game, but I don't like Purdue to go very deep. So I might take High Point in the upset here in the first round.
That's what I'm talking about, Stats. That's what I needed to hear right there. These guys talking about this freaking point guard. God, he was so bad too in the late in the tournament last year when Edey was awesome.
You mean in the championship game that he
he stunk. But so who we going? We going Purdue still here? We got to go Purdue in the bracket.
Yes.
Okay, Illinois versus the winner of Texas and Xavier. Xavier always just seems like a tournament team to me. But first of all, since this game is tomorrow, Steve, who you think wins, Texas or Xavier? And then talk about Illinois.
Yeah, so the first bet we put in when the bracket came out was Xavier in the play-in game. We've been high on Xavier. They've been frustrating at times, but I think they played encouraging ball down the stretch, I thought. They won, 7 of their last 8. Their only loss was in the Big East tournament where they probably should have beaten Marquette in that game. So I took Xavier, and Illinois is such an enigma. I don't really know where to go in that game. I tend to keep riding Xavier. Illinois is a team that shoots a ton of threes and can't make any of them. They are back healthy, though. So Illinois basically for a month had guys with the flu, mono. Their backup big was hurt for a while. He's back. They got drubbed by Maryland in the Big Ten tournament. I think Xavier can win that game, but I kind of want to hear what Gav thinks.
Yeah, what we got?
I think this game is actually easy to break down because
I like the over. Whoever plays Illinois, I like the over.
Yeah, I wanted to be just the knee pads out for Illinois because this was like a super high variance team, given 3-point rate, given some of the upside with their guys. They were the 4th overall defense the first 15 games of the year, and they were the 93rd rated defense the last 18. When Steve said, they were just completely ravaged by injuries, mono. I mean, you name it, they had it. But they are going to play a very, very conservative, one of the deepest drop coverages in the country. And both Texas and Xavier have multiple guys who can absolutely pick apart drop coverage off the bounce. I mean, Conwell of Xavier is a 97th percentile guy creating his own shot, 99th percentile shot making. Trey Johnson is going to be a lottery pick specifically because of his 3-level scoring ability off the bounce. This is a mega susceptible spot, a terrible draw for Illinois itself.
Stats, what do you think?
Yeah, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the entire tournament. So how I always feel about that. I got to ask you guys. I'm going to ask Steve and Gav here. Do you feel there's the teams coming off the play-in game have a little bit of an advantage just because you get your feet wet in the tournament? I mean, we all played sports. Like, to me, you get into the biggest games of your life here. I think there's an advantage having played won, as opposed to the other team hasn't had a chance yet.
Actually, I think it actually helps them in this case because Illinois is also a really young team. This is going to be the first tournament game for a lot of these guys. So in kind of this particular instance, I think it may, on kind of a larger stretched, broader sample, I think it, is probably relatively negligent over enough times.
Okay. Yeah, Xavier's an old ass team too. Their top. Everyone besides Conwell is a senior on this team, him and Swain. So I agree. I think whoever wins that play-in game, it's a really, really good matchup for both of those teams against Illinois.
I just feel I don't have any numbers to back it up, but like Stats said, I think every year at least one of the play-in teams makes a deep run.
Also, we're fading a Big Ten team for you there, Tony.
It's music to my ears. You guys are saying this because Xavier always feels like they do good in the tournament, and Texas too. So it's how I hated. What was it on the other side where I hate San Diego State on there. Like I feel good putting Texas and Xavier into that line, and whoever wins, I feel good about it. But Stats, you didn't talk about this one, right?
Yeah, I mean, I talked enough about it, but. I'm good. I'm good with that as well. I like getting like I said, I think Illinois gets bounced early, so I'm good with taking the winner of that game.
Mhm.
All right, let's move on to Kentucky. Troy 93% on Kentucky, but we got 10.5 point. It opened at 11.5 now, 152.5 total. 16 Ken Palm versus 95 Ken Palm. Steve, what's going on?
Yeah, they call it the Fun Belt for a reason. When they play real teams, it usually goes pretty poorly. That happened again this year in their non-con. They played Arkansas, Oregon, and Houston, got pasted by all three. This Kentucky team gets Lamont Butler back, their best guard defender. They're basically offensive engine. So I've got Kentucky here. And I think something like Texas or Xavier against Kentucky would be really interesting.
Gav, what do you think?
Yeah, in this matchup, I mean, Troy's path is, they have a top 20 near proximity rate. They're going to get to the rim. Kentucky had the worst 2-point defense in the SEC, albeit getting a little bit healthier with Andrew Carr.
Yep.
The only thing is, Kentucky with their 3-point rate and their shooting, having a guy like Kobe Bryant, even if they don't have Jackson Robinson, they can really light it up and have kind of some sneaky, high variance potential with that baked in, especially, if they get to, I think Tennessee in their bracket, like a team that's going to let up a ton of threes, that has had their shooting woes in spots. Kentucky already beat them both times, by double digits at home, by 5 in Knoxville. They kind of have their number, so to speak. Did it without Jackson Robinson one time did it without Lamont Butler. So I think it's a really high variance team that, the larger kind of bracket pools that you're in, isn't a bad team to potentially take a shot on.
Mm-hmm.
Stats, what do you think?
Yeah, you see that number, the 93%, that, you always kind of get you kind of want to pull the trigger on try. I don't like it though. Even though the market is going to be slightly under that 93%, I think it's fine. We advance Kentucky. Now, they're also one of those teams, they qualified. They did not score more than 10 points per game, but I think this is a team. There's a couple other things when you look at their Ken Palm. I like the Ken Palm. I just like how good they are offensively in Ken Palm. So I will have some brackets with them actually going deeper than I may have otherwise because of that other stat. So I'm going to have some brackets with Kentucky getting at least to the 8.
All right, let's move it along. UCLA, Utah State. One of the games that moved a full point too. There wasn't many line moves, but UCLA opened 4.5, went to 5.5, 144 total, 27 Ken Palm versus 52 Ken Palm. So this is another one to me that looks super easy for a 7-10 matchup. I like Cronin too in these spots. So I think UCLA is slam dunk, but Boynton, tell me why I'm wrong or right.
Yeah, I hate both of these teams, which is why I'm glad whoever wins has to play Tennessee in round 2, so we don't have to see them for more than one game. Utah State's going to play basically zone the entire game. This is a Mountain West team in the tournament, which we like to fade. I think Utah State is cheeks. We saw what Colorado State did to them on Friday. Just absolutely put the boots to them. What Gav's going to bring up for sure is that UCLA didn't really see much zone in the Big Ten, so that'll be different for them. UCLA is going to stop you at the rim. Utah State is rim dependent. I don't really love getting involved in games like this, but I'm going to pick UCLA because I just think that Utah State's terrible.
Gavin.
Yeah, gosh, Utah State walked so that UC San Diego could run. This was like the early season mid-major darling.
Yeah.
Started off 10-0, 16-1, 19-2. By middle of conference play, the defense has fallen off. So UCLA is not a high volume 3-point shooting team, but they, do shoot it relatively well. But we also have the situation of Mick Cronin. Just throwing the worst grown man hissy fits at the microphone about how the travel and this and that. UCLA was terrible away from home. I think bottom 20 away from home on Haslam, and going to Lexington. We'll see. I don't know if we really like much either of these teams. So if you asked me a couple months ago, I would have been Utah State with a lot of money, but God, they just have not been very good lately.
This is Cronin's home, though. Lexington's where he loves. He freaking loves it there. So that's a little side note. He's a big horse guy. He loves it in Lexington.
Really?
Stats. What?
He should get him a horse on his team.
That could be true.
I'm more worried about how the players react in Lexington than him. I'm taking Utah State here. I like the offense.
There
Man.
we go.
Yeah, I like the offense. So I'm taking Utah. I don't like either one of these teams to get out of the next round.
No.
So I don't mind taking the upset even for that reason. But I think Utah State wins the game. I like them plus the points, plus the 5.5. And yeah, so give me Utah State in this.
All right, where you going? Who are you guys? Do you guys both like UCLA, or do we want to go with stats?
No, you
Utah
guys take
State.
UCLA.
There's
Utah
no way I'm
State? I
picking
heard
UCLA.
another
That shit can institution.
Gavin went to SC, so going against UCLA is perfect.
All right, let's move on to the next round. So Houston, Georgia. Let's talk about all these real quick, Steve. Who you got in these?
I got Houston for sure. I think the Houston Gonzaga game will be interesting if that does happen. I've got Clemson over Purdue. The only reason I have Purdue in that first one is just because of the matchup. I just really think that Clemson is just such a high floor team. You have to beat them, and I just think Clemson takes them out. Down low, definitely have Tennessee over whoever wins that 7-10 game. And then I think we should talk about the Kentucky versus Texas / Xavier a little bit.
Get in there.
Yeah, it's kind of nervous.
Yeah, go ahead, Gav. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, Kentucky can lose that, or they can beat Tennessee is kind of what I was referring to.
Kentucky owns Tennessee. That's the one matchup that I like if they get there.
I know. I kind of want to take Kentucky over X and then Kentucky over Tennessee.
I think that's a relatively unique way to go because, people are going to, I think, follow the KenPom range to the Tennessee. That game's probably going to be, on a neutral 6.5, something like that. So it's going to get a lot of love, in brackets, especially sharp brackets. But, even it could get hairy for Gonzaga for Houston early up top. I mean, they got multiple ball handlers. You can shoot over the top of them. If, Houston is in full health with Juwan Roberts. There's a couple, I think, dicey spots in these for the 1s and 2s.
So what do we got, stats?
I mean, look, this is like the best collection of ones I could remember in a long time. But I think if one of them go down, I think we said it earlier, I think Houston may be that team. And I'm tossed up. I'm going to probably have equal amounts of Tennessee and Kentucky. So I don't mind either way that we go with our bracket here.
Can we go Clemson over Houston?
We can do whatever you guys want. This is our bracket.
We could easily do Clemson over Houston, and which I'll probably do if I was staring at if this was my bracket, I'd have Clemson right here, and then I'd have Kentucky to go.
Is Kentucky? Steve never likes Kentucky. Are we going Kentucky?
I like them now that they don't have Calipari as their coach.
I'm telling you, I watched both Tennessee. They owned Tennessee both games. Like they owned them.
Yeah, let's do it because then we get. Well, yeah, because then we get 4 SEC teams.
We do got all 4 SECs. I do like that.
Well, there's a high, with that many teams, there's a pretty high probability that this could happen.
Yeah, and they're all the best ones, too.
Yeah,
it's not like you got to.
Let's just do it.
You're not going out on a limb to take them,
right?
And then you get do we have Clemson, Kentucky, and you get Kentucky with revenge after losing at Little John?
Yep.
Earlier in the year.
Yep.
Oh boy. Oh brother.
All right, what do we got for these last ones here? We got Auburn, Florida. Let's just Steve go and then Gav, and then we'll see if we get a consensus with stats.
Well, let's start on the right. I've got Bama over Kentucky.
Yep. Auburn, Florida.
I think I've seen enough from Florida. I think I think they're going to do it.
And then Florida over Bama, you got?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Gav, any disagreements, or you like Bama, Florida over?
Auburn over Bama in the third match to break the tie between the two rivals, the state of basketball, or basketball goes to the state of Alabama.
I like that too.
Stats, you're the tiebreaker then. What do we got, Stats?
I have it exactly how Steve had it.
Florida over Bama? Okay, that's our official. I'm gonna post it on the Twitter too after the show. But for the sake of the show too, let's do our own. Steve, who's your Final Four and your champion? If you got one bracket, none of this. Your main contest, you got one freaking bracket. Who you going? Your Final Four and your champ.
Our bracket is basically mine, except for I had a couple of different games in the first round.
Just fun. So this is you right here. Your same one, Florida over Bama.
Yeah.
And Kentucky. You got one bracket. You're going Kentucky Final Four.
So that's what I was saying earlier. If these teams in the West were in the bracket with Houston, like if Texas Tech or Maryland, I would take a shot with them. But they're jammed in this really, really tough West. So, yeah, this is
okay. So this is
what I'm
you,
rolling
Gav.
with.
What's your Final Four and champ? Your own bracket.
So I went the Auburn over Bama. I also went Houston though, and I went the Florida right in the other one.
Yep.
So I think there is almost minimal likelihood that we don't see at least 2 1 seeds. It's probably going to be 3, and it could very well even be 4. Honestly, is just where I'm at with these teams. Kind of at the end of the day, I've watched it the entire season with all these teams just completely rout the rest of the country and fight each other, really strongly during the season. So that's where I'm at.
Stats. What do you got? One bracket. I know you talked a lot about your strategy in these with different entries and stuff, but if you only had one, you got a single entry bracket in some high stakes thing. Who you got? Final Four and champ.
I'm going to take Duke, Tennessee, Florida, and Iowa State.
Iowa State. I like that.
Yeah.
And then who we got? Finals and champ.
Yeah, I'm going to take Florida to win the whole thing. And we'll take them over Tennessee. We'll go with the an SEC matchup. Now, did I say Tennessee? I had Tennessee in the thing. No, I didn't. Was Tennessee my team?
Tennessee.
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah.
And I got the least exciting, but I really think all 4. The only one I'm not confident on is the Houston one. I don't like Houston, but I struggle to see Kentucky getting there with the guards they got. I just struggle to see anyone else. So I'm going to have the least exciting ever, and I'm just going to say the 4 1s. But I'm taking Duke for sure to win it over Florida. Duke over Florida. Boring, so it's not even worth even saying. Also, so like I said, we're going to do a show at Run Pure Sports. Steve and Gavin will be the headliners, as always, talking DFS, talking bets, me, stats. I'm not sure who else will join them. At least one of us, though, will be on all 4 days. All the DFS plays, 16 games Thursday and Friday. DFS, bets. Check it out, though. And then what's that promo, Steve? So it's $70 for the whole March Madness, everything, even NIT tonight, everything through the end of the tournament. Only $70. And if you use the code, what is it, Steve15?
Steve15.
Steve15 gets 15% off. I'm definitely no freaking math genius. What's 70?
Less than 70. That's what it is.
Less than 70. Stats is supposed to give me the auto answer. What's it?
Oh, what the
$59 or something?
$10.50.
Yeah.
There we go. I was close. I said $10. So $59.50 for the whole month. You're gonna get cores every day from Steve, from Gavin. You're gonna get bets from JBC, from Stats, from myself. I'll pop some in there from Third and Schlong. You're gonna get so much freaking value for your $59. Steve 15. And
That's something paid off on like the first bet on Thursday that we win. We pay for that.
There's no better value. And I'm not one that says stuff I don't mean. Like, you're getting access to the sharpest people in the industry. These 3 plus JBC plus Third and Schlong plus a million other people in the Discord, honestly. And for niche stuff like this, I mean, it's just awesome to have these guys in Discord talking to you if you have questions. Stats will be able to talk about survivor strategy. Mm-hmm. To pay $59 and get all you get is crazy. And that's not even to mention you got stuff like MMA in there too. If you want to get the full package, MMA, NASCAR, NBA stuff through the playoffs, come check us out. Like, we did this show for free. We're going to do other shows for free. But if you want the good stuff, come check us out. Steve15's the code. Steve, what else you got before we head off into Wednesday and get this thing rolling?
Yeah, I'm pumped. We gave out some bets here, but we'll have them every day. The playbooks will be up early. And yeah, like the Discord is probably worth it by itself because, we're posting starting lineups and news as it breaks, how we're reacting to everything that's going to come out. And we do have some big news spots for the DFS games in the first couple days.
100%. Gav, it was fun as always. What do you got for the people on the way out?
No, not much else. Don't want to take up any of your guys' time because I'm already getting the invoice ready for you.
Stats. I always enjoy the show. What do you got for the people on the way out?
That's it, man. 2.5 hours. It was quite the show. So I'm almost up 24 straight hours. I had to get up early and drive my dad to the airport today. So I'm ready for bed, but I feel like I brought a little bit of energy tonight.
I think we went over the total too. Like I figured we'd go probably 2 hours with 4 of us, and I didn't even talk that much. I figured we'd go 2 hours. We paid the overs anyways with the news, but we broke it down, and people can rewatch it all day Wednesday, obviously. And I think that's it. So thanks for hanging out. We will see you guys all week and all month. Check us out at Run Pure Sports, and we'll see you guys later this week.